I can assure you, this story is not a John Wick parody, although let's find out. Our hero's name is Kim Gun, and he is a professional killer #1, some even call him the ghost of fighting. His main treasure in this life is a little dog Mongu. For his sake, he is ready to do anything. And after another bloody contract, Kim Gang went to buy some goodies for his cute pet. Another killer was waiting for him, who sent him greetings from one of his past victims and said that today was the perfect day to die. It seemed that this was how Kim Gun finally died. There was a reason why he had a bad feeling about today. Of course, such a death was quite expected for a killer, but still, Kim Gun really wanted to take revenge on that bastard in hell. The only thing Kim Gun regretted was his poor Mong, who was now alone. But even though a shot in the head is usually fatal to health, Kim Gun didn't die, and was soon able to open his eyes again to see his sweet Mongu, and suddenly, Saitama. Oh, my mistake, just some random bald guy. Kim Gun was so startled that he got up by headbutting the bald monk as hard as he could. He's still wearing his dapper suit and his head is intact. How could he survive after being shot in the head? More importantly, Mongu's here too. At least the cute little puppy was fine. Still as adorable as ever. Mr. Baldy, who got headbutted, stood up resolutely, his voice shaking as he proclaimed that the wait was over. The savior has finally answered their call. Gun was confused as to what this nonsense that Baldy was yapping about. Then, the roars of hundreds of grown men started erupting from around Gun. These people wearing black and red uniforms were cheering for their renewed hope. This stunt only confused Gun even further. What in the world is happening? Another one of these fanatics came up to Gun and called him a savior. It was another bald man, but this time he had some facial hair. He introduced himself as the Dai Dak, or First Elder of the Holy Blood Sect. Before Gun could even ask the hundreds of questions running through his mind, the bald First Elder came forward with one request. That is for Kim Gun to dominate the entire Murim, the ancient martial world. This ridiculous request that came out of nowhere just puzzled him even more. First, where in God's green earth is he? From the looks of the surroundings, they're situated in a mountainous area with perilous topography. One thing's for sure, this is not the world that he once knew. It's a place called Murim, the ancient martial world in another dimension. There are these people who tasked him to dominate this so-called Murim. Apparently, he was summoned by these bastards, but he has a hard time believing the things he's been hearing. After processing the shell shock of appearing in an entirely different dimension, Kim Gun concluded that these people were utterly insane. Thinking that he couldn't deal with a group of crazy people, he hurriedly took his phone out of his pocket, only to see that the signal was dead. So, he turned to the uniformed bastards and demanded that they send him back to where he was before, or he'd start cursing. Even though he's been cursing non-stop already, he asserted that he still has to catch that guy who shot him in the head, so time is of the essence. The Holy Blood Sect members were confused. This wasn't how a savior should behave. Kim Gun vehemently denied the title of savior, insulting the bald First Elder for being a senile bald bastard. He didn't want any more babbling, he just wanted to get back to his world. His complaints were halted by loud and amused laughter coming from outside the cultish circle. Gun covered his ears as an imposing voice approved of his stubbornness, saying that he has the perfect spirit to be a savior. The voice also insisted that the First Elder isn't bald by choice. It's just that his hair doesn't grow. The surrounding members were shocked at such blatant insults to the bald First Elder. Baldy himself was already fuming with anger directed at an old man. That old man warned Gun to be careful, as no matter how much he's called a savior, disrespectfully mocking the members of the organization won't end well for him. This dude is the current leader of the Holy Blood Sect, Sahakyong. He threatened Gun that disrespect might lead him to lose his life. Our hitman sneered and returned the warning to the leader to speak carefully in front of him. It was they who brought him to this place without permission in the first place. What he'll do next will depend on how they speak to him from now on. If the old man makes another slip of the tongue, titles wouldn't matter. There is a decent chance that Gun will snap and just get rid of the old fart once and for all. The bald First Elder sensed the growing tension in the air and tried to dispel it by interjecting. Sahakyong waved his bald head off as he wanted to speak more. He wanted to present a challenge to the alleged savior. If Gun can defeat him, then he can do whatever he wants. He'll even hand over the position of head to Gun, and he can do as he pleases thereafter. The First Elder tried to protest this unacceptable bet, but the leader wasn't done yet. He added that if Gun failed to defeat him, he wanted something in return. Gun did not even let the old man finish. He dismissed the challenge and demanded that they send him back to his original world. Suddenly, his body got a whole lot heavier from the sheer atmospheric pressure. His eyes widened. Gun had never experienced something like this before. The leader of the Holy Blood Sect hadn't moved an inch. He just stood there, projecting a terrifying aura, and he promised to show Gun what the underworld truly looked like. Under tremendous supernatural pressure, he felt like an insignificant ant being looked down upon. He has worked as a killer for most of his life, and yet he's never felt such blood-curdling pressure like this. He psyched himself up. At the end of the day, the opponent was just an old man. As the top hitman known as the Battle Devil, he's been conditioned to never feel fear. So, Kim Gun squared up. He put his hands up to defend. The old man asked him if he was ready, and he just scoffed at the ridiculous question. Seo confidently proclaimed that Gun's arrogance would not last long. Gun was getting tired of all the blabbering. He conceitedly yielded the first shot, daring the old man to come at him with full force. The sect leader would not decline such a generous offer. In less than a second, Seo vanished from the spot he was standing in. It was at this moment that Gun knew that he royally messed up. The old man had closed the distance between them without being seen. When Gun caught a glimpse of the opponent, a clenched fist with untold strength was already heading for his body. Too slow to react, a clean hit landed on his stomach. It was so hard that it must have rearranged his internal organs. The leader pushed him off with an unfathomably powerful strike that defied the laws of physics and logic. Gun found himself planted deep into a concrete wall. He would have flown a lot farther had the wall not stopped the terrifying momentum. His crash caused a loud explosion, scattering dust and debris. Kim Gun was wide-eyed with shock and disbelief. He threw up blood, and his whole body felt the pain. The leader walked up to him with a disappointed sigh. Their alleged savior can't even avoid such a basic attack. Now, they must ask themselves if this man is truly their savior. Seo marked him as a genuinely pathetic fighter, one that is not even worth facing. That's when Mongo decided to start chomping down on the old man's pants to avenge and defend his injured dad. Seeing this made Gun forget about the agony of his injury. He urgently yelled at Mongo to run away and save himself. Then he turned to the old man and warned him that if he touched Mongo, blood would truly flow on these grounds. But his empty threats fell on deaf ears as Mongo flew past him at alarming speeds. Gun's precious little puppy had been kicked so hard that he hit the concrete wall as well. The old man had already turned his back on the defeated fraudulent savior to task the first elder to throw the fraud into the underground prison and feed his beast to the wolves. Kim Gun screamed that Mongo was not a beast, but his family at the top of his lungs. Then his voice fell back into an eerie calm. He reiterated his threat from earlier that touching Mongo would lead to certain death. He asked the leader if he thought that he was the strongest one at that moment. That idea was ridiculous to Kim Gun. He thought that the leader of all these people was not strong at all. He slowly stood up and posed a question of who everyone thinks holds the greatest strength in the world. Maybe some would answer that strength lies in the hands of those who have a lot of money and resources. The first elder warned Gun to stop getting on the master's nerves. Maybe the strongest is simply the one that possesses the greatest raw strength. Maybe it's the one with the knife, the blade that can cut anything. Well, our boy doesn't believe that any of those people are the strongest. The first elder and the master looked at their disgraced savior, pulling out a strangely shaped object. Mr. Savior urged everyone to listen well to what he was about to say. The strongest one in the world is the one with a fucking gun. An explosion resounded around the mountainous area, and the smell of gunpowder filled the air. The bald elder and the master did not understand what he was saying. They just stood straight and looked blankly, still trying to figure out what the use of that strangely shaped object was. Then, the bullet penetrated the master's forehead, shattering his skull and scrambling his brain in just a millisecond. The bald first elder echoed the master's question, curious as to what Kim Gun was holding. Then, the next thing you know, blood was spurting out of the old man's head as he collapsed on the ground, folding like a used lawn chair. Bro died by an accurately placed shot without even knowing what a gun is. Seo, 64 years old, is the leader of the Holy Blood sect, or at least he was. The bald elder did not know what to make of this ridiculously confusing situation. What's certain was that the alleged savior did something, but now, the leader's dead. With the leadership transferring to his hands, he ordered the surrounding members to attack and not let the guy who killed their leader live. Angry, uniformed members came running in to avenge their master. Kim Gun regained his cold-blooded composure as he welcomed the enemies calmly. He's confident that he could tide through this human stampede. He still has one more gun in the holster, after all. Kim Gun aimed at the incoming Holy Blood sect army and started raining down bullets. Each bullet precisely targeted one head after another. This was his statement that these bastards had messed with the wrong person. It was one shot. One kill. Anyone who got in his range died a quick and bloody death. With every trigger squeeze, another sect loyalist was dead to rights. The ground below them was stained with blood and brain matter. Bullets entered the forehead and exited at the back of the head. His dual-wielding style was perfect for eliminating droves of enemies who dared to run up with fists as their only weapon. He did not care about his bullet count. It had become a race of whether he would run out of ammo or the Holy Blood sect would run out of men first. Seeing their comrades fall one by one, fear started to spread among the charging members. Hearing the hopeless pleas of the Holy Blood sect men, the bald first elder realized he must have made a mistake. Those on the front lines finally broke down and begged the gunman to stop. No matter what world Kim Gun was placed in, pleading and apologies always followed when he showed his true colors. Back in the modern world, he liked to share his beliefs with those who surrendered. His principle was simple, to do everything in moderation. Landing a punch on a wimpy thug, Kim Gun knocked out the enemy while shattering a few teeth in the process. The thug passed out before he even hit the ground, but he was not done yet. Before hitting the pavement, Kim Gun grabbed the guy by the head. Along with moderation, revenge had always been his ironclad belief. A few years ago, the 18-year-old Kim Gun was already a prominent figure on the streets, feared by many, and dubbed the Fighting Devil. He had been in 282 fights, with 0 draws, 0 losses, and 282 wins. He was the leader of Bet Goi Yahang and the Incheon Alliance. But in this particular alley, in this typical gang fight, his worldview would be changed by a stranger. The suited-up stranger asked him if he thought he was the strongest, if he thought there was no one around who could beat him anymore. The stranger disagreed. The genuinely strongest guy is the one he won't be able to beat with a fist in a million years. A man he won't be able to knock out no matter how hard he tries. Kim Gun, the young and arrogant upstart, thought that such a man didn't exist. He confronted the stranger, asking if the bald bastard knew who he was talking to. Gun arrogantly returned the question with sarcasm. But before he could boast about his record or achievements, he felt a sharp pain after a swift bang. He looked down and saw his leg with a large hole, bleeding profusely. The stranger insisted that no matter how solid and sleek his fist became, he would never be able to win against the man with the gun. Kim Gun kneeled down in pain, trying to stop the bleeding as he asked the stranger why he was being targeted like this. The stranger revealed that he had just come here to make a suggestion. He could have just said that in the first place and not shot the young man in the leg. Right? Mr. Stranger laughed and joked that he had just shot Kim Gun lightly. But he also did it to demonstrate how amazing it is to feel that anyone's life can be decided with a single squeeze of one's finger. Kim Gun was in a lot of pain. He hurriedly asked the man what he wanted from him. The suited-up guy's suggestion was more like an invitation for Gun to work for him. If he did, the stranger promised to make him the strongest man, for real. Which brings us back to Muram. Gun had stopped firing. The barrel of his pistol shone under the bright daylight. He shot the bald first elder with a non-lethal shot to the left shoulder. The gunman towered over the wounded bald elder and asked who he thought the strongest man was. In fear of suffering the same fate as the other Holy Blood Sect members, Baldy admitted he was powerless and would give Kim Gun whatever he wanted just to be spared. And so, our boy was politely escorted into the headquarters where he was given the most comfortable seat. Sitting on the throne with a pistol in hand, his suit had been replaced with a more comfortable black and red robe. Kim Gun had been crowned the new leader of the Holy Blood Sect. The elder also kindly appointed his puppy, Kim Mongo, as the new vice leader of the sect. Seeing the dumb smile on the bald first elder's face, Gun shot another round near Baldy's head. It almost grazed his ear. Had he moved another inch, his ear would have been done for. Gun did not like being appointed the new leader at all. He had not asked the bald bastard to do something like this. He demanded to be taken back to his previous world as he needed to take revenge on the guy who shot him in the supermarket. But he was asking for the impossible as even the bald first elder didn't know how to send him back. It's safe to say that Gun did not like hearing that answer at all. He should have been told about this essential fact earlier. He shoved the muzzle of the pistol against the bald head of the elder, threatening to paint the headquarters with blood and gore. If he knew this bastard was useless, he would have sent him along with the leader and all those corpses. Fearing for his life once again, Baldy kneeled and begged to be given a few days to figure a method out somehow. He just needed a little bit of time and promised he would deliver. Frustrated, Kim Gun dismissed the elder out of the room. Baldy made a run for the door, afraid the crazy gunman would change his mind. Gun sat back down on the throne and pondered his predicament. He had his cell phone on him, but it was just a useless brick without a signal. Suddenly, that same phone started mysteriously ringing in his hand. He was startled, to say the least. He was sure it wasn't working earlier. What greeted him was that spam text he got before heading to the supermarket. Now that he was reading it, it did not seem like spam anymore, as it mentioned the world of Muram. As of now, he couldn't reply to this bizarre text message anymore. It stated that there was a mission he needed to complete in order to get back to Earth. It playfully hinted that the mission's objective was relatively easy to guess. To put it simply, he would have to complete the Muram conquest. If he didn't complete his mission of conquering the world within a year, he would suffer the heartbreaking penalty of losing something precious to him. This precious thing was none other than the cute little Mongo. The texter continued taunting him, saying that the cute little puppy shouldn't die, so Gun should do his best to fulfill his mission. The sick bastard even sent a good luck message with a happy emoticon at the end. Frustrated and enraged, Gun cursed the spam texter so hard that it could be heard from outside the headquarters. The first one he looked for was that bald elder. Unaware that he had entered the room, Baldy kept on talking trash about the new sect leader for being a crazy and unreasonable bastard out loud while packing his things up. Seeing the bags laid down, Gun asked Baldy if he was going somewhere nice. Hearing his voice felt like being stalked by the devil. Baldy insisted he was just talking about his son and not Gun. As for the bags, they were also for his son. He insisted he had been working hard to find a way to send the sect leader back home. It seemed like every interaction they had ended with Baldy begging for his life. He even tried labeling himself as an old bald man to get some pity. Not giving Gun a chance to talk, Baldy kept on yapping about how being bloodthirsty would eventually get him punished with a death filled with pain and brutality. Gun had to raise his voice and threatened to hit the hairless bastard just to shut him up. Anyways, he just came here to inform the bald elder that their plans had changed. They were going with the one Baldy mentioned first thing when they met. The first elder could not believe what he was hearing. This brutal gunman actually agreed to fulfill his role as the savior and sect leader and rule the Muram world. Baldy was moved to tears upon hearing the savior they'd been waiting for going through with the prophecy. He excitedly promised he would get the crew ready in no time. However, Gun had one condition that he would not budge on. The bald first elder might look pathetic, but he was a pretty reliable force inside the sect. He assembled every member in the courtyard to proclaim the orders of their new lord. From now on, they were no longer the Holy Blood sect. They would now work unconditionally under the banner of the Mongo sect. No one seemed to have a problem with that, as everyone cheered and chanted their new name under a new banner and leadership. But deep inside, those who were cheering were crying with regret. They were already considering running away from this shit show. As far as everyone knew, wasn't Mongo the name of that beast the sect leader loved so much? Upon seeing the cuteness of the puppy, their doubts were washed away. Everybody loved Kim Mongo. Maybe the sect would flourish under this new structure, and perhaps it would be good. That was the thought going through everyone's mind. There were only 364 days remaining until the Mongo sect ruled the whole Muram world. The news that the leader of the demonic sect had changed swiftly reached the ears of people in high places. The fact that they're not even called the Holy Blood sect anymore came as a shock to everyone. An elderly man exuding dignity could not fathom why that organization would sully their reputation by rebranding to become the Mongo sect. Gugigwang, the Kunlun sect leader, knew one thing for sure. A new wind was blowing through the failing demon sect. Whether that's good or bad is still up in the air. The leader inquired of his subordinate whether there was any information about the new leader yet. But the only info circulating is that he uses a strange magic attack. Gugigwang did not like the sound of that at all. The subordinate added that there are accounts saying every time the mysterious new leader moves, one person dies automatically. When the leader asked what kind of great move this was, the subordinate replied by lifting his middle finger and flipping off the old man. This is the mysterious technique everyone's buzzing about. It is said that the new guy moves only one finger. But the sect leader wanted to make sure if it really had to be the middle one. The subordinate lacks information, but the middle finger just seemed perfect for a technique that kills in one hit. Anyway, it's inevitable that the bloody wind will blow again. Inside the new Mongo sect, shouts of dissent could be heard from outside. Diongguang, the former Holy Blood sect's fifth elder, is protesting that just because the new guy killed their old leader, a change of leadership should not be finalized without consulting the other elders. But Duchiel-ho, the former Holy Blood sect's second elder, reasoned that it is stated in their doctrine that the strongest person shall ascend to the position of leader. Even if it's written in the sect rules, the red-hot fifth elder still refuses to accept this travesty. He was against all the prophesized savior BS in the first place. The second elder had to reel him in before the new leader overhears his yapping. Then another voice echoed the fifth elder's complaints, stating that he was disappointed with how things went too. On the other side of the table sits a big man. He complained about how much he sacrificed for the sake of the Holy Blood sect. Sleeping, the foods he wanted to eat, the times when he wanted to play. He endured and gave up everything. But now, a stranger sits at the helm without their approval? Yukpei, former Holy Blood sect fourth elder, doesn't like that. The second elder remained civil, but gave those who had some grievances a way to quell their dissatisfaction. They can just show their frustration through strength. But he reminded the two rogue elders of one simple and immutable fact. The man they were complaining about killed the previous leader. If these two rushed to him with this kind of spunky attitude, there's no telling what might happen. The most likely outcome is that they'll be the next ones to die. The three elders swiftly exchanged a series of meaningful glances, seemingly waiting for others to get in on the plan. Speaking of the mystery man, Kim Gun, the new leader of the Mongo sect, has entered the building. He was introduced by the bald first elder. It looks like the heated elders have some brains as they stood up, and welcomed Kim Gun with as much hospitality as they could provide for this first meeting. The fourth elder's eyes eventually drifted to Gun's feet, where the adorable little Mongo was shyly hiding behind his dad. Big Boy Elder was smitten with how small and cute the little pup was. He asked where this cute beast came from. Hearing those words did not land on Gun's ears well. The fourth elder slowly closed in, seemingly motioning to pick Mongo up. Before he could get close enough, he heard a grave voice calling him a fucking idiot. Much to everyone's surprise, the new leader smacked the crap out of the big boy's mouth. His big body hit the floor quite harshly. That backhand smack must have been firm. Kim Gun cannot stand people making fun of Mongo. At least that is what he detected from the fourth elder. He stared the guy down and ordered Yukpei to never open his mouth in front of him anymore. When he did not get a reply, Gun called him a dumbass. Shocked and confused, the fourth elder just apologized. Now that he has opened his mouth, he's still a dumbass. Once that was settled and everyone was seated, The bald first elder proposed the start of the elders' meeting. Kim Gun sat at the head of the table with his feet up in a lazy pose. Baldy gave him the floor to say whatever he wanted to say. He started off by informing them that from now on, they would begin to conquer the Mirim world. That's a good start, as they can finally regain their old fearsome reputation. However, if they do not succeed in conquering the Mirim within a year, Kim Gun implores each one of his members and elders to kill themselves. Now, if they do not want to die, then they had better get their asses to work. For starters, Kim Gun wants to hear some ideas on how to start conquering the Mirim world in a year. The scholarly second elder politely raised his hand. He thinks it would be better if he just came forward to say something. In his mind, he was ready to make the case for why it was impossible to conquer the Mirim within 1 year. But he was immediately shut down by the new leader. Kim Gun stopped him from saying anything because he somehow looked like a TNC to Gun. Before this gentleman could even say what he wanted to say, Gun already felt that this dude was just trying to say that his goals were unrealistic. The second elder was successfully shut down, but it made another elder angry. He smashed the table and demanded that they stop this farce. As the fifth elder continued to listen, the more dumbfounded he became. He appealed to the things he'd been yapping about earlier, such as how there were no elder consultations for the crowning of a new leader. Kim Gun might have defeated the sect leader, but the red-hot elder can't just accept this. If Gun wants to be recognized as the legitimate leader by everyone in the sect, then he will have to fight for the right to sit where the previous leader sat. Kim Gun laughed at this foolish request. It might be dumber than his mission to conquer the Mirim within a year. He asked the elder if he was sure about this challenge. Well, Dong Guang is not as dumb as he looks. He reckons that Kim Gun must have a strange ability, just like the previous leader. Under the table, Gun was already checking his pistol. He does not have a lot of bullets remaining, so he needs to save as much as possible. This odd act of looking and fiddling under the table did not escape Dong Guang's attention. But he thinks that the fraudulent leader must be getting scared. He's confident that whatever made the former leader fall won't be a problem for him. The first elder, who's seen just how ruthless Gun really is, tried to talk his junior brother down. Dong Guang walked uncomfortably close to the stone-faced Kim Gun. Then the dumbass started making silly faces while asking the leader if he was getting scared. In the first elder's mind, he's already thinking that this kid is done for. Kim Gun looked up. The anger was palpable in his face. Even the freaking dog was surprised. Not getting a verbal answer, the fifth elder continued to prod him for a response. He even dared the leader to look him in the eye if he wanted to say something. Then, Kim Gun opened his mouth. He calmly asserted that he wasn't scared. He was just searching for his peace. He quickly aimed it at the annoying elder and squeezed the trigger. But he must have made a mistake, as what he pulled wasn't his gun at all. It was his cell phone. He mistakenly took out the wrong thing, but he might as well check if there's anything new in his inbox, right? Upon checking, his eyes opened wide in surprise. Meanwhile, Dong Guang continues tormenting him from the sidelines, daring him to attack. Well, it seems like this red-haired bastard really wants to play with him today. He stood up, walked up to him, stood eye to eye, and proposed to play a game. But first, he wants to put some conditions in place. Some house rules before playing. Maintaining a reputation is a difficult thing in the leader's position. While Gun was prodding Dong Guang to agree to a game, he was suddenly struck with an ominous feeling deep in his gut. Kim Gun's words didn't even register in his mind. He could only see the new leader as a hungry beast of prey, just messing with him before pouncing for the kill. After making the former sect leader eat his bullets, Kim Gun is now facing the fifth elder in a duel. Some sect members on the sidelines think that the current leader is being too reckless with his actions. Others believe that it's the fifth elder who's being reckless with this duel. Well, everyone thinks that Dong Guang became a grandmaster level fighter just because he was strong, but that cannot be farther from the truth. There is one aspect of the fifth elder that makes him utterly terrifying. It is an established fact that he's never even fazed by getting hit while getting cursed out by strong foes. He would just stand his ground and take the punches and strikes without batting an eye. Sometimes, he would even taunt the enemy to try harder. Dong Guang reached the top not by being strong but by making his enemies who dared hit him collapse from exhaustion. It's the typical scene for him. He'll just stand with his hands crossed in front of him, and he will goad the enemy to go harder. No level of physical strength could go through his impenetrable defense. That's why Dong Guang earned a fearsome nickname. He is said to be so tough that he would just scoff at a tiger's attack. He has been dubbed as the Tiger Vanquisher throughout the land. While other sect members were busy gassing up the fifth elder, a grating voice yelled that they just didn't know anything about what was going to happen. There's an ugly-ass, sweaty dude among the crowd. He claimed to be there at the scene back where it started, and that he saw the true terror of the new leader. By his recollection, it was a quiet day without a cloud in the sky. But then suddenly, thunder rumbled on the ground. The next thing everyone saw was the previous leader bloodily lying on the ground, dead. And then the real fight began from there. Sweaty Guy claimed that every time the current leader moved, people would start falling one by one like they were struck by the strongest thunder and lightning. The sight of them dropping like flies filled Sweaty Guy with such horror that he had to pull out the 3D glasses and a tub of popcorn, even though those things didn't exist in this time period. And even if the opponents were weak, the leader did not make any exceptions. He gunned down an old man without flinching. At that moment, the nickname that goes along with the sect leader's actions came to mind. As they say, even the crow shuts its beak in the face of such shock. Kim Gun was dubbed as No Gyum Ma, or the Scum Silencing Demon. The other members had to admit that it really is quite an intimidating nickname. Then, the chatter stopped, and everyone shifted focus to the stage as the sect leader and the fifth elder entered. To some of them, this would be like the battle of the century, and it's about to begin any second now. The elder tried to call the leader by his nickname, but mispronounced it to sound vulgar. Deong Guang clasped his fists together, showing his innate strength. Displaying his cut body for everyone to see, he asked the leader if he was ready to be beaten up. Gun just clicked his tongue in this ridiculousness. He's used to this type of guy talking big at first. Well, they only run their mouths until they get shot. Someone stepped up to officiate the match, so the battle between the sect leader and the fifth elder could commence. The format of the fight is as Gun requested. It will be a match format called Original Judgment. With the gun in his hand, the leader explained that the rules are simple. Each person attacks the other once, and the last one standing wins. However, the winner of this battle can decide the life or death of the loser. Now, as the official asks who will attack first, the fifth elder cuts him off. He came here to remind everyone of his nickname. He is the Tiger Vanquisher, the man who can withstand even a tiger's attack. So, he would like to personally yield to the first attack, just to flex on the boss. Kim Gun thinks that this guy might have a few screws loose in his head. He aimed the pistol, and since the elder was foolishly giving him the first attack, he'd like to say one thing. Gun kindly gave Deong Guang the spot he would be attacking. The chest. The fifth elder smiled a toothy grin, thinking that the leader would regret underestimating his defense. And so, the Tiger Vanquisher flexed his muscles, and his physique tightened in front of everyone. With his toned body, he brought his arms up to his chest and dared the leader to come at him with everything. A loud bang echoed all over the sect, and the next thing you know, the fifth elder's right thigh was already bleeding profusely. The official was flabbergasted. The fifth elder felt a pang of pain that he'd never felt before. Silence filled the courtyard as everyone couldn't believe their eyes. Gun broke the silence as if he did not just trick the fifth elder and everyone here. The audience was not impressed. They think that the leader's technique just produced a lot of noise with no power to back it up. It should not be nearly enough to defeat Deong Guang. They might think that, but in reality, the fifth elder was already down on the floor, bleeding all over the concrete stage, cursing and kicking his feet around. Deong Guang's pathetic screams shut the audience up. Then, the red-haired fool started protesting the deceit. The leader announced that he'd go for the chest, not the thigh. In response, Gun casually walked a little closer and mocked the fifth elder for falling for the oldest trick in the book. He flashed a smug smile that almost made Deong Guang pass out in anger at the playful bastard. Still, the fifth elder can't possibly show such a shameful sight in front of his direct subordinates who showed up to support him. He needs to get up quickly, but his legs are way too weak. But from experience, he knew that the more desperate he got, the calmer he would need to be. Besides, it's his turn to attack now, and he still has one operational leg. Now that it's his turn, he warned the leader to be nervous as his punches are renowned to be very painful. His fist technique has a very fitting name for something that makes his victims feel the pain of being bitten by a tiger. Deong Guang squared up and primed his attack. Its name is Tiger's Mouth Fist. About halfway through his impressive charge, he felt another pang of pain on his remaining uninjured leg as blood spurted out. The official doesn't even know what to do anymore. He has never seen such blatant trickery. Deong Guang was feeling miserable and hopeless. Just what kind of person is this leader to do such things? Well, Kim Gun could not give less of a shit for the rules that he set. He's the leader, and he gets to shoot whenever he wants. Just as the officiating guy was about to explain the rules of this one-on-one duel, the simple regulation that they should be taking turns attacking, Gun cut him off. Kim Gun questioned where that rule was written. It's certainly not in the Constitution of Korea. He pressed the official to cite his article and clause so he would abide by the rule. The first elder watched in the front row, thinking that even the devil himself would be surprised when it came to this new leader of theirs. Meanwhile, Deong Guang had both of his legs taken out. He can't stand, let alone move, with these injuries. The leader came up to him with an old saying from the world he came from. If you enter a tiger's den, you will live if you keep your wits about you. He thinks that this saying is untrue. He believes that to enter a tiger's den and come out alive, all you will need is a freaking gun. As the barrel of the pistol stared him down, Deong Guang felt his death coming. He stumbled on his words as he admitted that he was wrong. He swore to do better from now on, just for a chance of reconsideration. But even after all that, Kim Gun still pulled the trigger, and a bang silenced everyone once again. Deong Guang was still bracing himself for the end of his life, while Gun was just messing with him with playful sounds. Then, the new leader turned around and claimed that Deong Guang owed his life to the leader from then on. So, he better not get on Gun's nerves. The fifth elder just sat there, speechless and continuously bleeding from his gunshot wounds. He felt a feeling that he never felt before. He feels so victimized, but at the same time, he doesn't. Guang smiled and attributed his confusion to the forming of a friendship between real men and the leader. While walking away hurriedly, we find out that Gun almost got screwed at that last part if he didn't improvise. It turns out that he ran out of bullets for the kill shot. But that problem might not be too big of a deal, as he's expecting something. He pulled out his phone and immediately checked his inbox for any new messages. At the top of his inbox was a mission update for his victory against the fifth elder. Achieving victory without killing has gained him a random additional reward on top of 2 magazines or 30 rounds of ammo. He was confused at first. He didn't think that an additional reward would be activated. Gun turned to the bald first elder and asked if there were only 4 of them in the council. It turns out that they actually have 5. And the third elder, who is currently absent, has been taking care of business. From one enemy to the next, the blade only needed 1 slice to claim life. Blood is spilled, and heads have rolled all in the hands of a single killing machine. After slaughtering leagues of men, the third elder was informed of what happened to the sect in her absence. Yes, the third elder is a badass assassin. It looks like while she's trying hard to revive the sect, some people are working hard to kill it altogether. But still, she acknowledges the fact that the new leader defeated both the previous head and the fifth elder. That's not an ordinary feat. She wants to meet her new boss. So she wrapped up her operation in this random side of the country and got ready to head back to the sect. Jin Huaran, the former Holy Blood sect's third elder, is very excited to meet this Kim Gun fella. The next day came, and it seemed like something wrong was happening with Mongo. He's been snarling and barking since early morning, but he doesn't seem hungry. It turns out that Mongo's been snarling at the fifth elder, who's been waiting by the leader's bedside for quite some time now. Gun was so caught off guard by his subordinate's freaky face that he punched it squarely in the nose. With blood on his knuckle, Gun played it off as if he just almost punched the poor guy. It turns out that while he was sleeping, Guang had been refining his martial arts. He's doing so in case someone tries to threaten the safety of the sect leader, not knowing that he looks more like a threat than anything else that could come through the doors. After getting shooed out of the room, Guang dejectedly walked out. Then came the bald first elder. He's been tasked to check in with Gun first thing today. The new leader wants to call all the elders to ask them something. The elders have gathered with haste. Now that everyone was present, Gun wanted to ask why he was labeled as the chosen one. Why do all of them have to follow the strict martial arts code? Mr. Scholarly Second Elder raised his hand dutifully and volunteered to explain the lore. An organization called the Woolen Alliance runs the show. They're also known as the Congregation of the Righteous Factions. Comprised of multiple elite sects and clans, they might as well be labeled as the most powerful organization. And this behemoth of an alliance looked at the Holy Blood sect as a thorn in their side. The reason for that, despite being no different from themselves, is a little iffy, to say the least. It's just that the Holy Blood sect's prosperous appearance seemed irritatingly conspicuous to them. Time passed, and simple jealousy soon turned into arrows of temptation aimed at the sect. The Woolen Alliance attacked. They burned down the sect's properties and sent the members into a frenzied run for survival. The so-called righteous factions handed down the order to kill every Holy Blood sect member, regardless of age. Even the children shouldn't be spared. Being overwhelmed by the combined forces of elite clans and families, they were defeated. The Holy Blood sect have fallen into a state of desperate recovery while the surrounding hyenas see them as prey. Their weakness did not appeal solely to the righteous factions, but also to the unorthodox ones. That's because the former Holy Blood sect belongs to neither the righteous nor the unorthodox. They have grown with immense success while simply following their own doctrines and principles. They've always tried to live peacefully, but their success made them a target of hate. And now, with the Savior as the new sect leader, everyone is silently hoping to unify this chaotic Murim world and achieve peace. But the second elder is still campaigning for a change of expectations. By all accounts, conquering the world within a year is practically impossible. That is Gun's one non-negotiable condition, though. The new leader never said anything about peace. His declaration was explicit that they only needed to conquer. He does not look like some kind of Power Ranger, right? These talks about peace unification are unrealistic. Modern-day nations can't even do that in their previous world. Besides, his being the savior is still unclear. The first bald elder explained that the truth is that they don't exactly know why Gun became the chosen one either. Gun did not want to hear that at all. Well, the story goes back to the day they were attacked by the Woolen Alliance. While the sect burns to the ground and the corpses of the members litter the streets, something happens. The bald first elder was cornered by one of the hyenas as he hurriedly tried to convince the murderer that he was just a common laborer. But just looking at his clothes would make it evident that this guy's not a common laborer. His excuse was a terrible joke. The murderer looked at that damned bald head and immediately clocked who the first elder was. Unbeknownst to the guy, a man wearing a dark cloak was casually walking beside him. Just as the murderer was about to question the cloaked man, demanding that he reveal himself, the murderer was sent to the Shadow Realm in a single slap that made his whole head spin. Baldy has never seen anything brutally disturbing in his life. Now, he turned to beg to the mysterious cloaked man to be spared. He insisted that he was just an old man who did not have much longer to live. But the cloaked man did not touch him. He did not get close to him. The guy just tossed a scroll to the first elder's feet. Cloaked man explained that on the date and location written in the scroll, the savior who will unify the Murim world will come. The Holy Blood Sect must prepare well and welcome him. Baldy was confused, but at least this sounds like something game-changing. The man insisted that they would understand what the letter meant when they read it. Baldy tried to chase after the guy, asking about his identity, but he never got a reply, so no one knows who that mysterious man is. Not even a clue. But the first elder can recall one characteristic that the cloaked man had. Baldy proudly proclaimed that the mystery man did not have any hair, just like him. Kim Gun can sense the strong bald-to-bald connection here. Anyway, it seems like that mysterious man was sent here for an unknown purpose. While the elder meeting was still underway, a heavily wounded sect member stormed into the room. He apologized for his disrespectful and abrupt entrance, but it seemed like the leader was needed outside and fast. Kim Gun strolled out of the meeting room, and he did not like what he was seeing at all. On the sect's courtyard were the lifeless bodies of dozens upon dozens of his subordinates, their blood staining the tiles. Then a raspy and slimy voice asked Gun if he was the new sect leader of this so-called Mongo sect. He expressed his apologies for those guards lying dead. It just could not be helped, for they kept blocking him from entering the premises. It was Minju, the one known as the Ghost Sword Gate's master, dubbed the Demon Gatekeeper. He assured the new leader not to worry. Gun wanted to hear the reason why this ghostly man slaughtered his men. The reason for this sudden morning breeze. Why did Minju, the Demon Gatekeeper, storm through the sect's gates with his finest fighters in tow? He admitted that his organization has been eyeing the decline of the Holy Blood Sect after being targeted by the Wulin Alliance. Then, he heard the news that the old leader had been slain by the new guy. Minju has some kind of bad blood against the departed leader, Sahyok Yong, and he can't accept that his rival has died at the hands of a nameless outsider. So, with a new and delicious prey at hand, the Demon Gatekeeper can't just sit still, can he? Gun did not listen to all that yapping. He just insulted Minju for having such an unnaturally long snake tongue. The guy basically admitted to trying to loot an empty house. Minju did not deny that. Now that the purpose of this violent visit is clear, what will both parties do? The Demon Gatekeeper assured Gun that he doesn't have to cut himself just because it's virtually over for this new Mongo sect. The ghostly swordsman kept calling him a fool for some reason. But before the blades were drawn, one of Minju's subordinates stepped up and proclaimed that the best fighter doesn't have to participate. Now that Sahyok Yang is no longer to protect the sect, maybe Gyum Gaon Pung, Ghost Sword Gates number 2, can handle the remnants of a superpower on his own. Gun could not believe his eyes. That body and that axe just screams dumbass. He asked if the brute was trying to chop his head off with that oversized axe. It did not take much to rile up Ghost Sword Gates number 2 as he charged in for a simple taunt. You have to admit that with that size and speed, he would be a fearsome foe when it comes to physicality. Gun cursed under his breath. This guy's physique is no joke. That's an absolute tank right there. As the brute was about to reach the stairs, the leader was starting to feel uneasy. He tried to reach for his coat and had a grave realization that his gun was nowhere to be found. Before he knew it, the brute was already within striking distance, brandishing the axe to split him in half lengthwise. The axe was fully swung and blood splattered in the air. Gun was surprisingly all right. A man who will never let any harm fall upon the sect leader has jumped to the front and taken a blade for his boss. Yuk Pei, the fourth elder, took that axe swing with his arms. He claimed that he didn't even get scratched, but his arms were bleeding from a pretty deep wound. The fifth elder must have been awakened by Yuk Pei's heroism. He cannot forgive these people who are not yet content with just invading the Mongo sect. They even dared to harm the leader. For Dong Guang, this is a grave sin that must be punished and paid back with blood. He unleashed his ruthless tiger mouth's fist, and this time, it actually landed on the enemy's face. Based on the force and impact that it delivered, it's safe to say that the extravagant name of the technique is very much warranted. It was so powerful that it was felt all the way back to the sect's entrance. The fifth elder is about to go boogeyman and collect the Ghost Sword Gate's debts with their lives. Gun would have gotten in trouble if these two elders had not stepped up. He thought their backbones would be strong, but they actually surpassed his expectations. Even Yuk Pei, that big bag of flesh, is proving himself to be quite valuable too. Maybe if Gun could use them well, he would be able to dominate the Murim world in no time. Minju asserted that the Mongo sect was making a foolish choice here. Now, they must watch carefully as his blade delivers the results that their foolish choice will bring. Gun continued to ask the guy why his tongue was so long. Also, he has another thing that he wants to say, but he'll only say it once, so it's better if Minju listens. He just wanted to say that he doesn't avoid opponents looking for fights, but he's not one to spare their lives either. We're about to see the leaders of two factions go toe-to-toe against each other. Who are you betting on? With a single kill order from the leader, the fourth elder tripped down the stairs trying to charge forward, while the fifth elder goes sicko mode in the front lines. Truthfully, Dongguang has been waiting for the leader's orders to go hog wild against these scums that tried to bully the Mongo sect. Gun was just glad that the people around him were useful in his mission. Unfortunately, they can't all be athletic killing machines. Yukpei is a big bag of meat that's only good for defense, and he's clumsy. But the fifth elder was actively showing off why he was dubbed as the Tiger Vanquisher with his skill set. He has been pent up for a while now. He even helplessly lost against the leader, so he's itching to display his real skill in combat. Ghost Sword Gate's proud swordsmen charged at him in droves, using their agility and superior numbers to overwhelm the fifth elder. But Daeongguang is a veteran fighter with plenty of experience going up against foes with blades. He masterfully dodged every critical strike with no wasted movements. And once he got into a comfortable range to counterattack, he did not let the chance slip by. Just a single punch to the stomach would be enough to neutralize these scrawny swordsmen. His fist was so lethal that it might have caused some internal bleeding upon contact. The remaining enemies weren't fazed. They intended to use the opening while one of their own was getting clapped to attack. Fifth Elder efficiently dealt with the two-pronged attack with a spin move that seemingly conjured a tiny hurricane in the middle of the courtyard. Then, he sensed another sneak attack coming from behind. A swordsman with a disgusting mug was coming at him straightforwardly while wishing him dead. This shameful sneak attack resulted in a bloody collision. It was revealed that the Fifth Elder did not bother to dodge this pathetic attack at all. He just gripped the blade of the sword with his bare hand. The foolish swordsman asserted that this sword was given to him by his father as a generational heirloom. So, what did the cheeky Fifth Elder do, you ask? He flashed a smug smile and gripped the blade even tighter. He squeezed so tight and eventually broke the tip of the sword. He just snapped the thing in half. Then, he choked the fool, making the ugly swordsman fear for what was about to happen next. The Fifth Elder just stood there, choking one of the Ghost Sword Gate's minions in cold blood. Then everybody witnessed the most brutal chokeslam in the history of chokeslams. The impact was so hard that it broke the concrete pavement on the floor. Dongguang was quite pleased with himself. It looked like all these sword-bearing fools had laughable skills. While he was about to go after more scrubs, he noticed what his fellow elder was doing in the middle of the battlefield. Yukpei has been pelted with multiple blade wounds all over his body, bleeding in various places while still assuring Dongguang that they're in this together. Another sword freak came forward for the smoke, seemingly confident with his skills. He felt his sword make contact with flesh, but he was not able to cut through at all. Yukpei has been telling enemies that they cannot leave a single scratch on his body with these weak attacks. He keeps on proclaiming that, but his bleeding rate is alarming. When called out that he's wounded, the Fourth Elder would get offended and dish out a counterattack with his fists. With the swordsman's blade unable to deal damage, Yukpei got a free punch in the face. The guy braced himself for impact but was surprised to not feel any pain from the punch at all. On the contrary, the punch felt good. Yukpei yelled at the swordsman for looking at him weirdly and asked if he wanted to get hit more. The swordsman requested a full-course massage. This is due to the Fourth Elder's hidden trait, the legendary massage hands, making his attack power non-existent. Gun watched everything unfold from above, surveying the field. While his trusted men engage in the courtyard, he is left alone on top of the stairs. Some Ghost Swordgate members managed to sneak up past the stairs. They couldn't believe that the man calling himself a new cult leader was letting them get this close so easily. They're starting to think that Gun must have used some tricks to win against the previous leader. The sneaky duo bravely charged forward with the intent of killing the head to topple the playing field. But just as they were about to do a slash and run, a cold voice called out from behind. Kim Gun has long since felt the presence of the duo and made his way behind them to launch a counter-sneak attack. From the start, these fools were already looking in the wrong direction. Gun swiftly eliminated one by twisting the assassin's neck in one quick motion. You must not forget that our boy is the most successful hitman in the previous world. With one down, there's only one sneaky assassin left to deal with. After seeing his partner's neck get snapped, the assassin heightened his senses. He finally sensed the enemy coming from behind. But he was too late. The sect leader had already sliced his throat before he could draw his blade. The poor guy did not even get to say his generic bad guy dialogue before his breathing stopped. Gun murdered two guys trying to get the jump on him without breaking a sweat. But it seems like his back was exposed, and he would need to deal with a lot more of these sneaky bastards. With a karambit blade equipped in his left hand, he asked the intruders if he looked like an easy opponent to them. Instead of letting himself get overwhelmed by the enemy's superior numbers, Gun charged by himself instead. A blade to the neck piercing upwards, a slash to the shoulder, and another to the carotid. A powerful kick right into the body. Kim Gun displayed his hand-to-hand combat proficiency convincingly. With two blades on both his hands, Gun showed that he's not just a one-trick pony with a gun. Just as he could easily wipe out groups of people with bullets, he could do the same with a blade. It's a lot flashier, but it requires more effort. After mowing down intruders, he wanted to give those who were still breathing a piece of advice for the next time they planned to attack someone. As a hitman, One of the most essential aspects of success is knowing your opponent. Down in the courtyard, the fifth elder made a mess of the Ghost Sword Gate's minions. He paid back the blood that these bastards spilled from the cult's guards. It seems like things are slowly coming to an end on his side of the field. But they have not dealt with the biggest threat of them all, the man with the blade emitting an ominous aura. Minju finally had enough of seeing his men get mowed down by Daeongguang, and he jumped to the fray with a terrifying slash. Fortunately, the fifth elder managed to dodge in time with his inhuman reflexes. He criticized Minju for resorting to petty surprise attacks, a shameful display of cowardice for the leader of a sect. It's embarrassing. But right as Daeongguang was criticizing Minju for this dishonorable behavior, he felt a pang of pain that eventually paralyzed his entire body. Minju has been developing a poison developed for the assassination of Sahakyung. Who would have thought that this vile weapon would come in handy against the Tiger Vanquisher? With the fifth elder paralyzed, the ghostly swordsman was free to go wild with his blade with the intent of sending the elder to the side of his former leader. Using his freakish body, Daeongguang resisted the paralytic for a little bit and tried his best to run up to the enemy. He unleashed a tiger's mouth fist that landed on the blade itself. Both of their inner force wrestled for supremacy. The clash ultimately led to both Minju and the fifth elder flying into opposite sides of the field with the rebound. Being the freak of nature that he is, Daeongguang gains back control of his body, but the remaining poison in his system stops his inner arts from reaching his fists. Kim Gun was still watching upstairs with a grave expression on his face. He keeps on patting his pockets for his missing gun at such a critical time. He might be able to slaughter small fries, but he doesn't have a good feeling about this. Thankfully, another pivotal member of the sect would come in clutch at the perfect time. Mongo grabbed the gun from where his dad had left it, and ran back while clutching the pistol in his mouth. He really is an intelligent pup. Watching from afar, he could see that the fifth elder was struggling against Minju's continuous barrage of attacks. Dealing with this would be difficult without a ranged weapon. Still, he has to be mindful of every bullet he lets go as they're heavily limited. He can't afford to waste ammo. However, he can't let such a threat like Minju get out of here scot-free. While he was aiming his gun at the demon gatekeeper, ready to pull the trigger, he noticed something coming from the sky. Minju was maniacally laughing as he played with the fifth elder, thinking that the prestige of the old sect was gone. Now the Mangu cult will belong to him to integrate and bolster his Ghost Sword Gate. Just as he was finishing his arrogant proclamation, two sets of metal chains wrapped around his neck as two women bind him while they're in midair. Then, the main event showed up. She was wearing a sultry dress and wielding two deathly sharp daggers on both hands. Minju went from yapping about his victory to begging for his life in just a few seconds. But it might be a little too late for that. As soon as the woman wearing the elder robe landed in the courtyard with her subordinates, the demon gatekeeper's body was sliced in half and hit the ground. It made two thudding noises, one for the left and one for the right. The assassination specialization branch of the Holy Blood sect, the Iron Blood Squad, has come to pay respects to the new leader properly. But this situation is highly unfavorable. At their helm is the captain of the Iron Blood Squad and the third elder of the cult, Jin Hwaran. She politely extended her salutation to Kim Gun. Finally seeing the third elder in action, he couldn't help but feel interested. This woman just seems much more helpful than all the other elders combined. Still, this is not a happy and peaceful meeting. Jin Hwaran is actually curious about the level of her new boss's skills. The veteran captain assassin did not waste another second and drew her blade while charging towards the leader. She wanted a first-hand experience of the technique that won against both the former head and Daeongguang. Gun was wholly unprepared for the assassin lady's charge. He looked like he just got caught with his pants down. But just as she was about to slash his body to bits, Jin Hwaran seemingly pumped up the brakes and held herself back. Originally, she was just planning to scare the new boss a little bit, but came upon something very interesting. The new leader was caught off guard, but he still had the automatic response to react and block in that split second. She assessed that he did not luck his way to the top spot. Then she got the idea of testing whether he could stop another attack too. That's when Kim Gun spoke up and advised her not to do what she was thinking of anymore, as he's not so generous as to let two attacks go by without retaliating. He already has the pistol in his hand. She had heard about this infamous weapon that got everyone so scared. Still, she thinks that it's not enough to just defeat the former leader and the fifth elder. She wants to check if that weapon is all for show. But just as she was about to brazenly charge for another round, something deep in her gut told her to stop. Being someone familiar with killing and bloodshed, she developed a keen sense of danger. Jin Hwaran could not help but feel an ominous feeling. She felt as though taking another step forward would be the biggest mistake of her life. It's as if the flames of hell are already calling to her. It felt like confronting the devil himself, as if the devil wielded a blade and a weird weapon that brought about certain death. She knew that making the wrong move would end her. So, she did not dare move a muscle under the vigilant gaze of the new boss. The bald first elder could not handle the tension. He does not know what's going on with those two, but he became so scared all of a sudden. Jin Hwaran sheathed her blades and stated that she understood how Kim Gun managed to rise to the top now. Only the strongest of all can become the leader of the cult. So she was just trying to do her due diligence in verifying that simple fact. Once again, she sincerely apologized for the disrespect she had shown to the leader. Gun was still pissed though. This crazy assassin just tried to seriously kill him, but she's actually making some good points. Now that the brief internal strife was settled, a groggy moan can be heard near one of the walls. Jumgaeon Pung, Ghost Sword Gates number 2, is starting to wake up. He thinks he just passed out for a second. The enemy might have incredible strength, but he won't give up like this, and so, the fool started cursing out the Mongo sect to come at him again. He even boasted that their sect leader's nickname is the Cruel Sword. He proudly proclaimed that Minju would slaughter, torture, and violate everyone who resisted. And with the supplies they will pilfer, they will hold a festival of blood. The brute went on and on about how strong his leader was, but stopped upon seeing Minju's cut-up corpse on the floor. He clicked his tongue and quickly changed his tone. Now, he's saying that this mission was a bad idea from the beginning. Hearing that, the ghost of Minju appeared in the courtyard. He just solemnly nodded his head in agreement. They really messed up trying to pull this stunt. Night came, and Gun retreated to his quarters. It's been a long day, but they somehow managed to resolve the situation. But this was just the beginning. The coming year will be full of such incidents as they set off to conquer Murim. On the way to unification, they will undoubtedly come across powerful enemies. Guys that can send people flying with a single punch, like the previous sect leader. Maybe there will be guys that can split the earth with their swords, like the demon gatekeeper. If they're only the start of this arduous war, they'll inevitably face stronger foes. It's not far-fetched to think that the next person to lose their head and die would be him. But those are useless thoughts at the moment. Tonight he has Mongo to keep him grounded and motivated. Unable to rest after such a disturbing thought, he seeks out Baldy for some talking. The first elder had to stomach the insults and welcome the leader with a fake smile. Anytime he's in the same room as this man, Baldy's anxiety goes into turbo mode. But tonight, Gun just wanted to ask where he can find information on possible enemies they will have to fight against, as well as potential partners they can rely on for the future. Baldy was taken aback. This unruly leader was actually asking a normal and reasonable question for once. He thought for a little bit and presented the idea of paying a visit to the Hao clan. It's a clan consisting of low-class people such as porters, courtesans, and restaurant managers. People who are experts in blending into the background while important people go on about their business. They are pros when it comes to collecting information from here and there. Sure, you can call them rats that deal in deception, but they are incredibly powerful. Hao clan might have the most extensive information network in the area. They sell information to third parties. You could say that they're the leading information brokers in the game. Gun liked the sound of that, so he asked the first elder where they should go to meet them. Baldy was surprised once again. The Prince of Senseless Violence actually wanted to go do some risky business himself. Well, Gun wants to hear the information firsthand and make his own judgment on the matter. Baldy offered to look for some people to serve as the leader's escort team. Gun is okay with that. However, he doesn't want that crazy third elder joining his party. But that might be a bit problematic as the third elder knows her way around the seedy underworld the best. Still, from what Gun has seen, that woman was just too volatile. Speaking of volatile, the fifth elder just casually appeared beside Gun without getting detected. Guang proudly volunteered himself to guide the leader towards the Hao clan. Gun was so surprised, his first instinct was to punch the elder in the liver. With the red-haired airhead agonizing over the punch while on the floor, Gun demanded that this guy be banned from his escort team too. The preparations were quick and efficient. The leader was now en route to arrange some kind of deal with the Hao clan. Inside the carriage was the speechless Gun and the fifth elder, who was way too excited. He explicitly instructed Baldy to not include this brute in the trip, but here they are. To make matters worse, even the psycho-killer third elder has tagged along. She's even dressed up in beautiful green attire. It's like she's going out for a lovely evening in the town. Back in the meeting room before the trip, Baldy raised the need for the cult leader's escort team to visit the Hao clan. As soon as he asked for volunteers, the third and fifth elders immediately raised their hands dutifully. Baldy was once again put in a tough position. Jin Huaran made the case for herself. Since her missions have always taken her outside sect grounds, it's only natural for her to go since she knows most about the outside world. Also, it's been a while since she went out to eat delicious food and buy new clothes. Guang heavily disagreed. He thinks that he should be present wherever the cult leader goes. He believes that they are one in body and mind. Even the psycho assassin could not take the things he was spouting seriously. The Tiger Vanquisher has never even been to the Hao clan's territory before. He tries to disrespect her, but Jin Huaran bites back. She has seniority, after all. Guang should be calling her senior sister and not talking back. The fifth elder doesn't even know how to get to the Hao clan, but he's confident that he'll manage somehow. Baldy just stayed silent. He was already checked out with this task. He'll just let the leader ride with whoever. Stuck in the worst-case scenario in his head, Kim Gun was still holding on to his sanity by thinking of killing Baldy first thing when he got back. The carriage coach informed them that it was getting late, and that it would be better for them to spend the night in the city. They were welcomed by the sight of a bustling commercial district with multiple drunkards roaming the streets. The party went straight to an inn and was greeted by an employee. Fifth Elder asked for some rooms to spend the night in, and some food and drinks. Gun ordered Korean-style pork bone broth with blood sausages and rice with some soju on the side. The employee took note of their orders and assured them that all their needs would be taken care of. It was going swimmingly until a group of young men entered the inn like they owned the place. They're a group of Kunlun sect's first-generation disciples demanding to know if the inn has any drinks and empty rooms left. Jeoksang Cheon, also known as Kunlun sect's lout, asserted that they'll take everything, and if there's nothing left, then the staff had better make some. The employee humbly apologized that the guests standing in the lobby had already taken the last rooms. The evidently drunk Jeoksang Cheon came up to Gun's face, asking if Gun knew who he was. He once again insisted that they would be taking the rooms, so Gun and his entourage should find another place to stay. While he was demanding rudely, the lout noticed someone behind the man he was speaking to. He laid his eyes upon the peerless beauty of Jin Hwaran. It was infatuation at first sight. He never would have thought that there was such a heavenly beauty in this town. The lout switched his attention to her, asking intrusive questions. Then he pulled out his best move, introducing himself as a first-generation disciple of the great Kunlun sect. He added that a beauty like her shouldn't be hanging around low-class guys, so she better spend the evening with a first-generation disciple. The fifth elder is about to explode in anger. He would have eviscerated these spoiled brats if not for the fact that they're members of the Kunlun sect. Back in the meeting room earlier in the day, the bickering could only be stopped by one man. The scholarly second elder settled the dispute by making the call to send both Jungguang and Jin Hwaran to escort the boss to the Hao clan. However, they need to always keep something in mind. They cannot let other sects hear about their movements, so they need to avoid causing problems at all costs. The fifth elder cannot hold it anymore. He would rather get out of this place and find another inn than fail to control himself. The lout noticed that his face was grimacing as if he was holding back a complaint. Before the dumbass disciple could incite any more trouble, he was knocked down by a ballbuster. It was a critical hit. Kim Gun stood before the victim of the ballbuster with a grave expression. The lout bent and curled in agony while still trying to pull out the status card as if being a first generation of whatever sect would scare off the scum silencing demon. Instead of scaring them off, it only earned Jeoksang Cheon another kick. This time, it was straight to the jaw. Gun must have injected a fair bit of strength into that kick, enough to make the drunken fool fly all over the lobby's inn. The leader stood on business. If this Kunlun sect is so powerful, then he would gladly wait for the young men to call their guys. He will also be waiting for that food he ordered a while ago anyway. The fifth elder might be a bit dumb, but he knows that they just failed on the only condition of this trip. They are practically broadcasting where they are to the enemies. Looking at the knocked-out disciple of the Kunlun sect, he was starting to accept the fact that they were royally screwed. The fifth elder's face sweats profusely because our hero has officially invited trouble, and it seems the lady knows there's no turning back now. So, when those rowdy lackeys of that cocky disciple charge at our party, the lady quickly throws her dagger at lightning speed, and that knife finds its mark right in the chest of this hobo. The lady jumps into the air, and as this guy with the thin mustache asks why she's cowardly throwing knives, his wish to face her head-on is granted when she kicks him solidly above his head, probably scrambling his brain entirely. As the lady lands back on the ground, she places her hand on the floor, swings her leg again, and delivers a devastating blow to another dude with a dagger tucked in his chest. And once they're down, she quickly gets back on her feet while those two goons drop unconscious from her brutal head-splitting blows. The third elder then calls her guards, and immediately two ladies clad in red appear, reporting back to her. The woman retrieves her knife and orders her lackeys to clean up the mess. Since she left those guys alive, she instructs them to give them the wandering soul drug to make them forget everything, and then dump them in a bar with many harlots. After that, she turns to our hero, saying she wants to talk with him. Kim Jian agrees, but he's not sure if he should be ready in case she attacks him out of nowhere again. Nevertheless, they all calm down, and the lady asks the sect leader if he knows the people they just picked a fight with. Well, of course, this idiot didn't have a clue when he delivered that disciple a solid nutcracker, so he shrugs and asks who the heck they were. That's when the lady reveals they're disciples of the Kunlun sect, which is part of the Murim alliance that brought down our Blood Death sect, which is now rebranded by our hero as the Mangu sect. She's worried that if word gets out about today, their sect's dark past could repeat itself, and she doesn't want to lose her sect, which is like a second family to her. The mention of family triggers some memories for this John Wick here, and it turns out the dude never had one. He was raised in an orphanage. In the end, he gets where she's coming from and assures her he'll be mindful of it. The red gorilla looks pretty shocked to see that it's unlike our hero to agree to anything so easily. The hitman then asks if the Hao clan is also part of the Murim alliance, to which the lady says no. She suggests that he and Dongguan head to the Hao clan and leave this place as soon as possible. The gorilla asks what she's going to do here if he's tagging along with our hero, to which the lady replies she's staying to clean up the last remaining evidence of their commotion they have caused here. So, the third elder decides to leave to do her thing, and our hero also sets off on his journey in a carriage. After a long tiring journey, the fifth elder finally gives Kim Gaeon good news that they've arrived. As they enter the Hao residence, our hero boldly calls out if anyone's around. An elder immediately responds, pleasantly asking how this old man can be of help. Kim Gaeon immediately mentions that he's heard this place sells some special alcohol. The old man perks up at the mention of fine wine, quickly pulls a lever, and guides our hero further into the secret pathway. They descend down the gloomy stairway, and once inside the tunnel, the old man directs them towards a cabin ahead. As they enter, another man greets them. He introduces himself as Mengi, the manager of the Hao clan's Qinghai province branch. Even though he is being outwardly polite, inwardly he wonders if he should even show our hero that much respect, considering how messed up the Blood Death sect's reputation is, which now also goes by the name MangaCapped. The old man finally asks the reason behind our hero's visit. The gorilla immediately senses the insincerity in the old man's tone, and it really starts to bother him. Meanwhile, my guy acts like a goofball and stays silent in response to the old man's question. The manager doesn't like how our hero ignored him, so he decides to play it more cunningly. He apologizes if he's done anything to disrespect the leader of the great Mangu sect, calling himself lowly and saying he can't grasp the deeper meanings of things. He politely asks our hero to speak up about what's bothering him. Once again, the gorilla gets even more ticked off, like his veins are about to pop. If these slick talkers keep jabbing at him, he's definitely going to lose it. On the flip side, my man plays it cool, just chuckling at first, but his chuckles soon turn into maniacal laughter. The manager Mengi joins in this creepy laugh-off, both of them laughing like it's some kind of twisted comedy show, while the gorilla is seething with anger. But then Mengi's face gets serious real quick, letting our hero know he's not here for a stand-up routine. Kim Gaeon turns to Dongguang and asks if what he said about the Hao clan being unrelated to the Miram alliance is true. The gorilla confirms once again. With that in mind, our hero points his finger. Before Mengi can react, my guy gives the already annoyed gorilla the green light to take him down. Without needing to be told twice, Dongguang delivers a devastating punch right to the bastard's face, sending him flying backward and crashing through every door and wall. Kim Gaeon strides forward, exuding the aura of a seasoned killer, and makes it clear to this blockhead that as the leader of the Mangu sect, he expects to be greeted with respect by someone of high rank. He then turns to the old man, whom our hero thinks is the real branch manager, and asks if he got it right. But before this crooked old man can say anything, our hero tells him to sit down before he throws his back out again. The gorilla is amazed that his leader Kim Gaeon, who's usually terrible at guessing, actually figured out who the real branch manager is. However, Dongguang soon feels disappointed and bewildered when he sees the old man's terrified face, as he starts calling out for the real branch manager who is lying in the rubble after that punch. Kim Gaeon also feels sheepish, realizing he was wrong in his guess, and ends up taking down the real manager. It seems his habit of acting quickly based on intuition has tripped him up this time too. Meanwhile, we spot this shady dude lurking above the ceiling. His lackey shows up and the boss inquires about where the leader of the Mangu sect's right now. The lackey spills that he's at the Hao clan's Qinghai province branch with his fifth elder, and they've probably stirred up trouble with the Kunlun sect on their way there. That's when this guy drops his creepy mask, revealing his evil eyes. He orders his lackey to send a message to the Hmong sect. They better be ready to die because Black Blood sect is going to strike them down. Well, looks like we have to deal with these Black Blood sect clowns as well. Anyway, back at the Hao clan, Mengi is sporting a bloody face from a punch, and he looks furious as he demands how they dared to attack the branch manager of the Hao clan. Our hero tells him to shut up and sit down, because they need to talk. But this cocky manager keeps on cursing our hero with every insult imaginable. Kim Gaeon gives him one last chance, get punched again or sit down, and unarguably, poor Mengi wisely chooses the latter. This time, the manager tries being polite and asks our esteemed sect leader why he's come to this humble place. Jian cuts to the chase, saying he wants to know everything about the other sects in the Miram alliance. Mengi then asks if there's anything else our hero needs to know. Jian adds that he also wants info on any useful groups that could support the Mangu sect. Upon hearing this, the manager's first thought is whether our hero is trying to start a war. So he curiously asks for the reason behind seeking such information. Jian, with a serious tone, asks if he really needs to explain everything. Mengi feels the weight of his killer stare and quickly says no. But he doesn't shy away from mentioning that all the information mentioned is highly classified, so the price is accordingly higher. Having said that, the manager throws in a bonus for our esteemed leader of the Mangu sect, stating he only needs to pay 30 silver nyangs. Looks like Mengi is indeed selling this info pretty cheap, but he sees it as the only way to get rid of our hero. Meanwhile, our guy reminds the gorilla how money is useless to a dead man, to which the gorilla eagerly agrees, calling his leader a wise guy for dropping that philosophical line. By now, the manager's now sure we're just trying to rattle him, so he drops his price to 10 yangs in a hurry. The gorilla then teases this scared dude, asking if a limb of his is worth only 10 yangs. Finally, the manager cracks, saying he can't give away the info for free. Jian reassures him they never said they wanted it for free and they're ready to pay up for the goods. Hearing this, the poor guy lets out a sigh of relief and says it's expected generosity from the esteemed leader of the great Manga sect. Back to business, Mengi asks what he'll be getting in return for the info. The boy compares the manager to a kid waiting for presents on Christmas Eve, and he's happy to play Santa Claus, generously sparing the man's life in exchange for the information. Mengi may not know who Santa Claus is, but he definitely understands our hero isn't joking about giving him a death sentence. The grown man starts crying, but our hero tells him crying won't get him his present. With the negotiation settled, Gaon decides to move on to the more pressing matter at hand. The manager reluctantly agrees, saying he'll send the requested information about the Muram Alliance to our hero. However, he mentions that he'll need time to search for specific groups that could help the Manga sect. Jian asks how long it'll take. Mengi replies that he can't say for sure, but 30 days should be enough. Hearing this, our hero gives him 1 week to get it done. To drive his point home, he pulls out his sharp shiny blade and tells the man he has 7 days to have everything ready. Before leaving, our hero fires off a rapid-fire question about the Kunlun sect. The man begins explaining that the Kunlun sect is a Taoist sect located high up in the snowy mountains, a place not easily accessible to outsiders. It's a closed-off sect, so not much is known about it. However, he reveals they were once part of the 9 sects One Gang, a small elite group where each member wielded great power. But for some unknown reason, after the war against the Blood Death sect, all the disciples were expelled from the mountains. Upon hearing this, the boy starts thinking about something, and then asks the manager if their higher-ups are no longer interested in their disciples, to which Mengi confirms. The boy gets up thinking this might be a blessing in disguise, perhaps an opportunity to turn those disciples into allies, though nothing's certain. Sion rises from his seat and before leaving instructs the manager to send the rest of the information to the Manga sect. He also asks Mengi about their current relationship, to which the manager wisely responds that they are business partners. Well, that's not the answer our hero was hoping for. He reminds the manager that he came all this way to meet him and asks what their relationship truly is. Poor Mengi starts sweating profusely and admits they are friends. Upon hearing this seemingly pleasant response, our devilish guy immediately turns and starts walking away. He reminds Mengi that his definition of friends are those who would willingly sacrifice their life for him and give up their life so he can live his own. Mengi feels hopeless and curses our hero silently because one wrong word with him could cost him his head. Shortly after they set off in their carriage toward the Manga sect. Inside the carriage, Gaon asks the 5th elder if the 3rd elder is still at the inn. The gorilla confirms, saying she would have sent word otherwise. Suddenly, the carriage comes to an abrupt halt, leaving the horse jumping out due to the immediate brakes applied. The gorilla shouts, demanding to know what's happening. Looking outside, they see one of our hero's sect members. She apologizes for blocking their path so suddenly but explains there's an emergency. She urges Jian to return to the Manga sect immediately. The lady is Yeon Nanok, vice captain of the Iron Blood Squad. Once our hero finally arrives at the Manga sect, he's met with a message from the Black Blood sect stating they will visit soon, advising him to prepare for death. The bald elder raises his hand, seeking permission to reveal everything about the Black Blood sect. Jian gives him the green light to speak. And so, the Baldy explains that the Black Blood sect is this cult surrounded by all sorts of rumors. They're infamous for having no morals, making their cash through assassinations and all kinds of cruel stuff. No matter the age or gender, they will kill anyone as long as they're paid well enough. They're just nuts, really. The first elder figures they probably sent that message to hint they're gunning for our hero down the line. But he's cool about it, saying the Manga sect shouldn't sweat it because he's already got a plan cooking in that bald head of his. As night rolls in, that shady black blood guy shows up at the main gate. The guards tell him to freeze or get a stabbing, but it looks like this poor guard's in for a rough ride. We come back in time when Baldy revealed his genius plan to handle the Black Blood sect. He told the guards to not hesitate and punish anyone suspicious on sight. But just as one guard was about to make a move, the assassins seemed to be playing a game of hide-and-seek, and before they knew it, both guards were eating dirt. Arrows come flying at the assassin, but he vanishes in a flash, reappearing above them to toss a smoke bomb. As everyone struggles to breathe, he swooped back down and silenced the guard with a scream that echoed through the area, catching the attention of 2 other sect elders. They waste no time, rushing to the front door, betting there is an assassin waiting there. The assassin finally makes it inside, while our hero, sitting there, feels disappointed, because he was expecting an entire platoon of enemies to come at him, and seeing only one guy standing there is a big letdown. Even so, the Manga sect leader is ready to hear the assassin out and asks why he came. Well, it turns out he is not actually our hero, but Yukpei pretending to be the sect leader. The assassin doesn't seem too thrilled to see the chubby imposter sitting there either. Without saying a word, the assassin reaches into his robe. That's when we hear our real hero calling out to the assassin. Jian has a gun pointed at him and lets the guy know he made a grave mistake by letting his guard down. Jian asks if he knows what a seasoned assassin would never do, show mercy to his enemies. With those words, he puts a bullet right through the assassin's head, leaving the other sect elders freaked out who were completely unaware of this unexpected twist. Baldy McShine comes out of hiding, laughing his bald head off because his plan went off without a hitch. He praises our hero for taking out the guy immediately, saving them a lot of trouble. Suddenly, the third elder notices something, but the first baldy elder tells her to be cautious as it could be poison. However, she realizes it's a message. The message greets the new sect leader of the Mongu clan from Incheonbeak, the leader of the Black Blood sect. He explains he wanted to personally pay his respects but hasn't found the right time. As a gesture of goodwill, he'll send one of the sect's treasures, a necklace, through his most trustworthy subordinate. He suggests cleaning the necklace before wearing it. It turns out they've made a serious mistake. Everyone's jaws drop as they realize it was a goodwill gesture, not an assassination attempt. The one most terrified is Baldy McShine, because he was the one who orchestrated this entire mess. Well, this is what you literally call failing a plan successfully, and this Baldy nailed it. A heavy silence falls over everyone as they realize the colossal mistake, and the expression on Jian's face is one the elders definitely didn't want to witness. My man immediately aims his gun at Baldy's head, reminding him whose brilliant plan this was. The Baldy starts sweating buckets, staring down the barrel like it's staring into his soul, begging the master to hear him out. He stammers, explaining it's typical for jerks like that assassin to show up, and they just did what they thought they had to do. The other sect members arrive in the hall, asking if everything's okay. The old man demands to know why they're all gathered there. Everyone starts chuckling at this weird question. The elder then questions if they weren't supposed to be dead by the assassin's hand already. The soldiers keep cuckling, joking about whether their senior is trying stand-up comedy now. Looks like Baldy really messed up big time, and he's scrambling to figure out how to dodge that bullet aimed at his head. After a while, all the elders take their seats, and the second elder chimes in, warning that if news of this incident spreads, the Murim Alliance will be watching their every move, which could seriously cramp their style on the path to becoming the greatest sect. The third elder nods in agreement, suggesting they clean up their mess before striving for greatness. She proposes reaching out to the Black Blood sect promptly to apologize and make amends. But the gorilla, not known for thinking before he shouts, interrupts the third elder, declaring apologies are out of the syllabus. He demands to know why she's fussing over such a minor mishap. In response, she fires back, asking if the fifth elder would be so dismissive if one of their own had been killed. That shuts him up for a moment. Meanwhile, our trusty Baldy raises his hand, seeking permission to speak about the situation. My man gives him the green light to speak, but not before pointing the gun barrel straight at Baldy's head, blaming him for getting everyone into this mess. However, he withdraws the gun, leaving the old man sweating and unsure of what our hero has in mind. With a smirk, Gian appoints Baldy to clean up the mess. Pete's face, already drenched in sweat, glistens even more as he asks how he's supposed to handle the situation. To which my man replies that he doesn't care how the first elder does it, whether he begs, kneels, cries, or pleads. But it's abundantly clear. This egghead is going to clean up this mess, or Gian plans to use the old man's head for target practice. Left with no other options, the old man finds himself standing outside the Black Blood sect's turf, with his two lackeys in tow. They hesitate at the threshold, unsure whether to proceed. Suddenly, a masked figure appears on the stairs, and another lurks in the shadows on the ceiling. As if on cue, the gates swing open, prompting our reluctant party to cautiously step forward. The old man is visibly unnerved by the presence of these masked figures. One of the assassins speaks up, informing the nervous egghead that their master awaits in the room ahead. Once they stand outside the master's room, a line of masked figures guards the door. But eventually, our party enters. The leader of the sect warmly greets his guests, mentioning they've prepared extensively for the Mongu sect's arrival. A delicious spread of food awaits on the table, and he insists the old man eats first after his long journey. As the night progresses, they feast and share laughter. Baldy McShine seems particularly drunk, having seemingly forgotten all his previous worries. His lackey reminds him to stop drinking, but he waves off the advice and orders the lackey to shut up and stay quiet. The leader of the Black Blood sect then asks the first elder why the man he sent to Mongu sect hasn't arrived yet. Baldy McFear immediately comes back to his senses, and starts sweating profusely as he explains there was an incident at Mongu Bridge. They tried to rescue the assassin, but unfortunately, he didn't make it and is now dead. The sect leader remains silent, his expression hidden behind his creepy mask, while Shiny Top Sam contemplates making a run for it, unsure of what the leader might be thinking under that mask. Unexpectedly, the sect leader bursts into hearty laughter, reassuring the first elder to relax because losing a man is just part of the game around here. Pete has no clue what the sect leader means, but he nods along, pretending to understand and agreeing that it's a common occurrence. The sect leader asks if our hero liked the necklace he sent, and the old man eagerly affirms, saying the Mongu sect leader treasures it dearly and carries it everywhere. After acknowledging this with a nod, the sect leader gazes out the window, pulling back his mask to reveal a sinister grin and malicious eyes, as if everything is going according to his plan. After placing his mask on the table, the man maliciously reveals that the leader of the Mongu sect will soon die. He is relieved that his own lackey also died, believing that once our hero dies, both sects will be equal in their losses. He further claims that the necklace he gifted contains a colorless and odorless poison. Anyone in the same room as that necklace will feel a chilling sensation through their body. Within a day, their limbs will stiffen, rendering them unable to move, and death becomes inevitable. Panic Pete finally gets it that their whole place is now a death trap. He turns to the creep in charge, asking how he could pull such a nasty move. The leader just shrugs it off, saying using deadly herbs isn't the worst idea. He even offers to help Pete take a dose if he wants to check out early from this world. Stunned, Pete shuts up, realizing arguing won't help. He decides to split, but the sect leader stops him, saying he's not going anywhere just yet. It seems like the poor old Baldy is desperate, asking if there's anything he can say to change the sect leader's mind. The leader just shakes his head, making it clear that Baldy won't be leaving so easily. To save his skin, the old man immediately pledges loyalty to the Black Blood sect, and states that he also despised our hero and he deserved to die. But talk isn't getting him anywhere, so he tries to rally his lackeys to help him escape. Unfortunately, they're frozen with fear and won't budge. We then flash back to a moment when the first elder was pleading with Jian, crying and begging him to not send him alone into the Black Blood sect, warning that it would end in needless death. Jian casually brushes off Baldy's concerns, assuring him he's aware of the risks, and cheerfully states that he will be accompanied by the strongest bodyguards available. But in the present, Baldy is seething, cursing Jian for sending such useless guards with him. As the sect leader raises his sword, the first elder trembles in fear. The sword descends, but just as it's about to strike, one of Baldy's guards starts chuckling, and tells about his youthful days when he used to take out people every day. That's when the guard starts peeling off his face, revealing it was a mask all along, and throws it to the ground. Suddenly, a gun barrel is aimed at the sect leader, and the one holding it is our hero, letting the bastard know he's here to repay the gift he sent them. Before Jian drills a hole into this dude's head, the scene transitions into the past, where the second elder enters our hero's room. Once inside, he asks to see the necklace our hero was wearing earlier. Jian hands over the necklace to his dog, and the dog delivers it to the second elder. Jian tells the elder that if he likes it, he can take the necklace. The elder takes a closer look at the necklace and says that his hunch about it was right. The man asks what might be wrong with it, to which the elder replies that there's a poisonous capsule inside the necklace. This short sentence sends shockwaves through our hero, devastating him completely. The elder continues, revealing that the necklace wasn't actually meant as a gift, confirming the suspicions the Baldy elder had. Immediately, the man asks about his dog, worried that it might be poisoned from playing with the necklace. The elder reassures him that the dog hasn't been exposed long enough to be affected, but warns that leaving the necklace there would have been deadly for everyone. Then he asks what they should do next. At this point, my man gets really mad, swearing to take down those bastards once and for all. The elder finds himself in a tight spot because he didn't want our hero to go there. He reminds his leader that his life will be in danger if he goes there and suggests a plan involving a fake mask. In the present, the old man perks up at the sight of our hero, but Jian tells him to get the hell out of there. Once both leaders of their respective sects face each other, the black-blooded guy admits he already knew our hero wouldn't die from those cheap tricks. However, he also threatens Jian, saying he'll make our hero regret not dying earlier. But my guy has his own sass. He asks the dude if he even knows what he's holding. The black-blooded guy states it's a pretty weapon he hasn't seen before, but he's confident he won't give our hero enough time to use it. So, the cocky guy strikes a pose and goes all out with the Black Blood sect's final Rainbringer technique, bragging that no one's lived to tell the tale. But quick as a flash, Jian pops a bullet straight into his head, blood spouting out like a busted water pipe. As the guy staggers back, Jian casually remarks that his technique is also the same. No survivors to spread the word. Once the dude's down for good, Jian hears the commotion as the sect soldiers come charging down, blocking his path. But my guy ain't sweating it. He just tells these goons to line up for their pills. And with that, he starts knocking them down like bowling pins. When one gets too close, Jian smoothly slices his throat with a dagger and plugs a bullet right through his noggin. He dives at the lackeys, either slashing their throats or blasting them with his gun, clearing his way forward. First Elder's bald head sweats badly, and he sees our hero nothing less than a monster. Once the entire place is littered with dead bodies, Jian finally pauses. But then he feels something strange about himself. He recalls his younger days when he preferred one-on-one fights over facing groups. His strategy was simple. Focus relentlessly on one opponent, even as others attacked from all sides. Killing just one was often enough to intimidate the rest into submission, turning him from a lamb into a wolf. But now, facing this relentless horde where more keep coming despite the casualties, he's pondering which one to target to strike fear into the others. With his gun running low on bullets, he needs to choose wisely. Suddenly, the entire place starts shaking violently, and our hero's face tightens with shock as something crashes from above to the ground below. Meanwhile, back at the Mangu sect, the third elder voices her concerns, warning that infiltrating the Black Blood sect with so few people is extremely dangerous. The second elder casually sips his tea and reassures her to calm down, explaining that he isn't going alone. He mentions that the fifth elder is also joining the party at the Black Blood sect, accompanied by his disciples, the Death Squad. The fifth elder, looking like a raging bull, immediately raises his voice. asking if our hero is okay and questioning the blood he has over his face. Jian stands there in shock, unsure how they arrived, but he wipes the blood away and informs his subordinate that it isn't his blood. The gorilla is absolutely furious, swearing these pesky bastards will meet their maker in hell. Our hero calls him an idiot, wondering why the heck he came here alone. Dongguang stays quiet but then chuckles, and suddenly someone lands a devastating blow across an assassin's face, sending him flying into the wall behind. This dude's got fiery fists and a headband tied around his face, and these jacked up dudes sauntering into the joint is the death squad. After beating the crap out of these guys, the red gorilla boasts proudly that he's got the whole Hogadan unit under his thumb. For the first time, Jian seems genuinely pleased with the gorilla's actions. Jian then gives the order that he's finished with his revenge, and instructs his bulky friend to clean the house. Dongguang gladly complies and starts taking care of business. He devastatingly punches one guy right in the face, then follows up with a brutal kick, sending him sprawling. He chases him down, prepares his fist, and delivers a blow so hard that the ground beneath the lackey shatters upon impact. Seeing their friend get smashed, the other poor guys hesitate, frozen in place by Dongguang's fierce aura of authority. The gorilla charges at them like a raging bull, thrusting one lackey into the wall behind and delivering a solid kick to another's face. He relentlessly smashes their heads, blood splattering everywhere. It's like he's been waiting for this moment, to crush as many skulls as he wants, and he isn't holding back one bit. With his final blow, Dongguang clears the entire area, leaving our hero standing there. By now Jian has finally started to feel genuine respect for the gorilla. Suddenly, the first elder spots someone about to attack their leader from behind. The baldy urgently calls out to our hero, but before his words reach Jian, he's already slit the sucker's throat, asking the baldy why he was calling him. Only a few assassins are left, surrounded completely by the death squad. The gorilla then asks if our hero has any plans for the remaining guys. He mentions these are the ones who dared to draw swords on the sect leader, so even tearing them to shreds would be futile. Jian starts thinking this, impressed by their fighting spirit and unwillingness to give up. He decides he wants them brought over to his side, but suddenly he notices something. He walks forward and stands before a child who is holding a sword against our hero. The kid is trembling, but still, it does not want to give up against our hero. Jian extends his menacing hand and gently removes the mask from the kid's face, revealing a girl who is crying, barely able to contain her fear. Before her, our hero appears like a devil, ready to take her life. The scene then shifts to a flashback where we see a few beggars. A grown-up beggar slaps a kid for not begging properly, angrily warning him to do it right or he'll break one of his legs. The poor kid apologizes, and this kid taking extra begging classes appears to be our poor hero. In the present moment, Jian crouches down and asks if there are any other kids of her age around, to which the girl shakes her head with no. One of the assassins starts yelling at the little kid, ordering her to swing her knife at our hero. Jian immediately silences his yapping by putting a bullet through the man's head. Jian instructs the girl to keep her eyes shut from now on, because some X-rated stuff is about to happen, something that's not suitable for her young eyes. My guy is absolutely furious because these bastards not only gave a blade to a kid but are also forcing her to kill someone. Jian grabs the little kid's hand and tells Dongguang he's taking the kid along, giving him the go-ahead to clean house with the remaining guys. The gorilla goes to town, turning those poor bastards into minced meat. The next morning rolls around, and their carriage heads toward the Mangu sect. Inside, the three of them sit in silence, including the young kid. The gorilla is visibly moved seeing Jian rescue the child, realizing Jian's actually a softie beneath that tough exterior. Then, the gorilla with a natural look on his face, asks the kid his name. The kid, scared stiff by his intimidating look, starts crying, leaving Dongguang earning a disapproving glare from Jian for making the kid upset. Jian comforts the kid, telling her not to worry and just relax. The kid nods okay and thanks Jian for saving her. Determinedly, she promises to do whatever Jian asks, no matter what. Jian then tells her he doesn't have anything for her to do. The kid asks what she's supposed to do then, and Jian simply tells her to just play. The kid lights up at Jian's response, and he adds that she should just eat, sleep, and play. That's all she needs to do. They finally roll back to the sect, and the other elders inside the mansion immediately ask how Jian's doing. To which he gives them a thumbs up and says, he's all good. The third elder then asks about the little girl, and upon seeing her innocent face, she finds her quite cute. The sect leader turns to the third elder and informs her that from now on, he will be staying here, so she should prepare a comfortable place for him to sleep. Suddenly, Mangu makes his entrance with his cuteness. Jian asks where Mangu is going if he doesn't want to stay close to his father. Mangu immediately sits down beside the little girl, who is visibly delighted to see the cute puppy. She extends her hand and starts playing with Mangu. The scene of the two cuties meeting overwhelms everyone with sweetness, even leaving Jian chuckling in happiness. The nearby elders are shocked to see the sect leader laughing for the first time. Our hero stretches his muscles and reminds the third elder to arrange a place for him to sleep, because he's getting tired. Then he turns to the kid and asks for her name. The little girl looks confused and says she doesn't actually have a name. In that case, Jian immediately gives her a name and decides to call her Haru from now on. Haru is once again delighted to have a name of her own, and when Jian tells her to focus on living happily, she feels overwhelmed. It's a moment of pure happiness for her. Tears of joy streaming down her face as she agrees to live happily, just as Gaon suggested. The second elder then interrupts with a scroll in his hand, revealing that while Jian was away, manager Maingi from the Hao clan visited to deliver the information. The sect leader immediately opens the scroll and reads it intently. Once finished, he tells the gorilla to prepare himself. Startled for a moment, the gorilla asks what's happening, and Jian informs him that they're embarking on an adventure to find his fellow comrades. Later, as Jian sits on his bed, he continues poring over the scroll. It's from Maingi, the chief of Haomen province, stating that as the first contributor to strengthening the Mongu church, he has decided to donate 36 acres of forest. This forest, with its 36 households led by Yujin Yak, contains not just 100 masters but also Yujin Yak himself, a formidable figure ranked among the top 10 masters. Upon reading this, the boy realizes that having these top 10 masters on his side would be incredibly beneficial, though their exact numbers and strength remain hard to estimate. He decides to get some sleep before brainstorming more ideas. As the morning begins with birds chirping, the little girl and the gorilla approach the sect leader, telling him that all preparations for departure are complete, and they're waiting for him to wake up. My guy immediately gives the gorilla a solid slap on the face for creeping over him all of a sudden. Confused upon waking up, he asks why the kid is here so early in the morning. Haru remains silent while the gorilla explains they're just there to see the sect leader. He adds that he hasn't slept all night due to excitement about their upcoming venture. The gorilla then pulls out a rather expensive gown and suggests his leader to try it on. Jian looks annoyed at first, but when he sees Haru's excitement and her calling the dress beautiful, he feels a bit guilty and reluctantly ends up wearing it. The gorilla compliments our hero on his new getup, and Haru also gives a positive response to seeing him in the dress. He gives the command to get going, and as he's about to leave, the kid calls out to him from behind. With eyes filled with admiration, Haru states that while the master is away from the sect, she'll make sure to play hard and bids him farewell. Jian chuckles at her innocence and tells her to indeed play hard until his return. Outside, they find a lot of luggage being loaded onto the carriage. Jian asks the gorilla why there's so much luggage when it's just the two of them going. The gorilla stammers, unable to answer, when suddenly the third elder barges into the scene, declaring that the luggage is hers and she's also eager to join the journey. She reveals that the road is full of dangers, so she might as well tag along. The sect leader seems fine with her presence, knowing that having 3 people is better than just this dumb Dyongguang accompanying him. Though he's unsure if she intends to join them looking so regal in her new attire, the lady confirms she's coming along and asks if it's too much. The boy remarks it does seem a bit excessive. Once their carriage is on the road, the sect leader asks where they're heading right now. The gorilla explains they're headed back to the Black Tiger headquarters where the second-in-command is located, as they can't go directly to the Black Dragon headquarters where the leader resides. Jian wonders why they can't meet the chief of the general staff directly. The girl explains they lack direct connections with the chiefs, making it impossible to meet him directly. That's precisely why she reached out to the second-in-command first to arrange a meeting. The man then curiously asks about this second-in-command person. Before the lady can spill anything, the horse abruptly comes to a halt. When Jian asks what's up, the gorilla declares they're camping here for the night. Everyone gathers around the bonfire in the dead of night, and the third elder asks if our hero liked the food. The sect leader shrugs and says it's edible, but suddenly they hear rustling in nearby bushes that grabs everyone's attention. A person emerges, looking totally beat, and asks if they have any food to spare. She mentions that while they wouldn't mind sharing food, judging by her condition, she seems to be getting chased by someone. Since they're also keeping a low profile, the elder tells the girl to go away. The girl apologizes and starts scarfing down the food like a wild animal without waiting for permission, promising to eat fast and leave right away. The sect leader is utterly baffled to see this eccentric lady, and once the girl finishes eating, she apologizes again for not introducing herself and then reveals her name as Songran. She insists she'll repay their kindness for the delicious food. The third elder cuts through the formality, telling her to forget about it and to leave once she's done eating to avoid blowing their cover. Songran promptly heads off, bidding everyone to enjoy the rest of their meal. But the sect leader and the gorilla watch her depart cluelessly because this shady lady just polished off all the food. So they wonder if she's being sarcastic about enjoying their meal. The third elder tells the sect leader to rest in the carriage while she prepares the food again. Jian thanks her and starts heading inside the carriage. But suddenly, he notices something nearby. There's an entourage approaching on horseback. One of the men in the group pulls out a wanted poster of the same woman and cockily asks if they've seen her. Jian is startled to see that it's the same freeloader who just ate their food. Besides that, what bothers him more is this man's rude tone. He considers teaching them a lesson, but decides to keep his cool. He waves them off, saying he hasn't seen her and that he's tired, so they should just leave him alone. The cocky guy surely gets annoyed, and with his face red with anger, he demands to know to whom our hero is talking like that. But my guy has got sass for days, and fires back, asking if this empty head knows who our hero might be. Suddenly, the third elder steps in to defuse the tension, stating firmly that they haven't seen the woman in question. She suggests they go their separate ways and avoid unnecessary bloodshed. The cocky man reluctantly agrees, but insists on checking inside the carriage before leaving. The elder asks Gaon for his opinion. The sect leader opens the carriage gates, repeating that they haven't seen the woman. As he does so, they discover Songran inside, casually munching on snacks. She reminds them that while she promised to leave, she never said she wouldn't enter the carriage. Jian's expression sours upon seeing her inside the carriage, because he knows the trouble has officially arrived for them. Seeing her inside, the captain guy goes off, saying this is exactly why he didn't trust them. He accuses them of invading their turf and pulls out his sword, ordering his crew to arrest our crew. The soldiers come charging, horses and all, while our sect leader digs through his fancy gown for his weapon. Once he's armed up, he's itching to take these guys down. But the lady tries to talk sense, saying they should talk it out. Jian's having none of it, though. A little while later, those once cocky fellas are face-planted on the ground out cold. The gorilla's glaring at them like they just kicked his favorite tree. The sect leader calls Dongguang over, fired up to lay into these guys. The gorilla's all in, nodding with that same fiery spirit. They go berserk, smashing these poor souls like they're rag dolls. The leader of the entourage realizes he's in deep trouble and politely requests that they hand over the woman. But the gorilla doesn't let up. He delivers a devastating kick to a man's face, then hoists him into the air and perfectly onto the horse's back. With a leap, he launches himself and takes down the other soldiers immediately. The captain of the beaten squad is scared stiff. He knows if stays anymore, he is going to get screwed. He quickly bolts from the scene to alert others about what's happening. But Dongguang has other plans in mind for this cowardly captain. Before he can act, a bullet whizzes past him, and the fleeing man takes a fatal shot to the head. The horse halts abruptly, and the captain tumbles from the saddle. Our hero stands there, gun in hand, smoke curling from the barrel, the scent of gunpowder lingering in the air. The third elder steps in immediately, reminding the sect leader of the gravity of his actions. She reminds him that by killing the military captain, they have escalated matters significantly, potentially endangering the martial arts world itself. But the boy just shrugs off her concerns, quoting a famous saying from his world, "If there are no witnesses, it's an assassination." He explains that once they leave this place, no one will know who was responsible. The lady immediately grasps the sect leader's plan. Jian then reveals that he has figured out a way to directly reach the general manager. Confused, the lady asks how he plans to do that. The sect leader then points to the girl's poster, which upon closer inspection, has something written in Korean that we can't understand. Songran finally steps forward and it turns out she is the general manager's daughter. She seems astonished to see that captain suddenly dropping dead by our hero's weapon. The boy reminds her that if she has anything to say. In response, the girl quickly thanks our hero, expressing her gratitude and promising to repay his kindness. The boy reassures her that she doesn't need to repay him extravagantly, and just introducing him to her father would be enough. At the mention of her father, the girl visibly pales, probably because she doesn't like being the daddy's girl. The next day arrives, and Songran announces that from now on, her men will guide them. The sect leader looks up at the plain rock mountain and wonders if people can truly live in such a place. Suddenly, 2 household servants arrive, calling out to Songran and asking where she has been for so long. She casually waves them off, apologizing for worrying them, explaining that she wanted to explore and experience various things. The servants ask Songran about this group of people, and she introduces our party as lifesavers who rescued her. The servants immediately show respect and gratitude on behalf of the young lady, but their mood dampens when Songran reveals their desire to meet her father. They are feeling hesitant because they can't let unknown folks inside the household, even if they did save her life. Songran tries to reassure the servants that our party are trustworthy people, and she takes responsibility for their actions. Eventually, they make their way inside the household, marveling at its grandeur. Directed towards a giant door, they stand before it as it slowly creaks open. While walking forward, they hear the commanding voice of a man acknowledging that our party saved his daughter, and ask if they wish to see him. Our usually burly gorilla, who usually looks quite sizable, seems like a kid next to this father. The sect leader is quite taken aback to see this giant chunk of meat behind him, while the third elder promptly greets the big man and introduces themselves as part of the Mangu sect, presenting our hero as their sect leader. The big guy steps forward, claiming he already knows who they are, but he's more curious about why they are here. Once he settles into his rightful seat, he asks the reason, to which our hero casually says they are gearing up to fight with the Muram Alliance. He bluntly states they need a meat shield, so he asks the old guy if he's willing to lend a hand, because he has ambitions to dominate the martial arts world. The big guy remains somewhat silent upon hearing this, and bursts into absurdly loud laughter, forcing the sect leader to cover his ears. The old man shares that he also dislikes the Muram Alliance, but he wasn't expecting such a blunt response from our hero. He then asks why he should help someone he has no connection with. At that moment, one of the servants grabs the attention of their leader Chung Chai, whispering something in his ear. A conversation all of us and our hero is completely oblivious to. Whatever the servant whispered clearly struck a chord with Changchai, as he became visibly fired up. He rises from his seat and strides toward Jian, radiating an intense, fiery aura. Just as he's about to grab our hero with his oversized hands, Jian instinctively reaches for his weapon concealed within his robe. But that grab by the old man was a gesture of friendliness. In a surprising move, he decides to marry off his daughter to our hero. My guy feels like he's been hit by a serious constipation upon hearing this. The other elders also have their jaws dropped on this bombshell the old man just threw. Our hero doesn't say anything in response, which leads the old man to believe he's trying to reject the offer. This visibly agitates him, and he angrily asks if the sect leader doesn't like his daughter. Jian stays silent still, and after a few minutes of silence, he finally decides to respond. His response to the old man's offer is simply to raise his middle finger. Changchai asks what the gesture means, wondering if it means Jian accepts the arrangement. Before our reckless hitman can say anything, the girl jumps in, places her hand over our hero's face, and asks the old man if they can have a moment to talk privately. Despite this, Gaon keeps his middle finger raised in opposition. The old man, seeing his daughter's future on the line, decides to give them a private moment to discuss. Once they're alone in the room, the third elder starts the conversation by asking the sect leader what he's thinking. Jian's first response is that he's never going to marry a woman he doesn't even know a thing about. Hearing this, the lady decides to talk to the old man to see if they can find a way out of this mess. Suddenly, Jian's phone rings. When he looks at it, he sees a mission. Form an alliance with the 36 houses of Nakram. The reward will be given if the alliance is formed without any killing, and the basic reward includes 2 magazines of 30 rounds each. Just as the third elder is about to leave to settle things, our hero stops her immediately, saying there's a way, and he wants to handle it himself. Looks like this dude is really desperate to snag those extra magazines for himself. So Jian finally appears before the old man. He asks if they've made their decision, to which Gaon bluntly reveals that he definitely does not want to marry his daughter. Changchai immediately asks if his daughter isn't attractive, to which Gaon replies that it's more than that. Instead, our hero suggests they become sworn brothers. Changchai is bewildered by this odd response and asks what the hell Jian is talking about. The sect leader clarifies that he wants to become sworn brothers and will even let Changchai have the title of the older brother. The old man laughs, calling our hero an unpredictable nutjob. Then he points out that sworn brothers should have equal status, questioning if being the leader of Mongu really makes Gion that prestigious. Our hero had already anticipated the old man's response, so he had prepared for this moment and decides to make a bet. The old man eagerly tells him to go ahead. The sect leader explains that they'll play a game commonly known as stealing the flag. The method is simple. Each faction selects 3 representatives from Mongu and Nokram. The bet is that the team that first captures the opponent's flag wins. If our hero wins, they'll become sworn brothers and support each other with strength. If he loses, he'll gracefully concede and withdraw. The old man protests that it's not fair. Our hero asks if he's scared now. Changchai then points out that if he wins the bet, Jian will have to marry his daughter and become his son-in-law. He asks if he agrees because this is the only way to make the bet fair. Jian is obviously startled by this and remains silent. This time, the old man is the one getting cocky, asking if our hero is getting scared. After a while, they step outside and it seems the sect leader has accepted the challenge. He had thought Changchai was just a big dumb brute, but turns out he's quite cunning. Knowing the old man's strength, he is sure that he'll personally play in this match to ensure his victory. So he turns to his gorilla friend and asks how he should approach facing Changchai, and how long he might hold out against that monster. Dongguang replies that if he were to face Changchai, he'd last at best 15 minutes before going down fighting. Looks like the sect leader is realizing he's bitten off more than he can chew. But he's determined and plans to end the game by snagging the flag within those 15 minutes. He then turns to the third elder and tells her that once the signal goes off, she should sprint like lightning to grab the flag, dodging enemies if she can. If she runs into trouble, just keep going, because he will take care of the enemies. A servant blows the horn, and the game officially starts. Jian shouts for the third elder to dash. She bolts into action, and Gaon turns to Dongguang, urging him to hold his ground no matter what, even if he dies. Dongguang reluctantly nods, and Jian takes off to find the flag. As he runs, he is confused why no enemies are chasing him down. Maybe he's going the wrong way. Suddenly, he spots the flag and quickly ducks behind a tree. There's no one around the flag, at least for now. He decides to seize the opportunity and make a move for the flag. But just as he moves, he senses an intense presence behind him, and the massive figure looms over our hero like a second coming of a gorilla. Before Jian can react, the old man readily places his hand on the leader's chest, unleashing a surge of energy that blasts the area, sending our hitman flying backward to crash brutally into a nearby tree. As Jian struggles to get up from the ground, the old man expresses disappointment, claiming that he has heard rumors about Mongu sect leader having a secret martial arts under his belt, but he is now let down. Jian, feeling agitated, apologizes to his friends because he's too busy dealing with this macho King Kong dude to help them out against other bad guys in the game. The old man, feeling bored, starts to stroll away, thinking our hero's got nothing left. But then the sect leader calls out and pulls out his secret martial arts move, saying the real fun's just getting started. Jian knows he can't take down this guy without his gun. But with blood messing with his vision, aiming at this guy is going to be a hassle. The old man's psyched to see our hero bringing out the big moves and asks how he plans to use his martial arts. Suddenly, he senses someone coming. It's the third elder. But she's immediately shut down by him, handling her like she's a little kid. He grips her face so hard it starts bleeding. Turns out Changchai has tangled with her before and warns her she's had her shot. He's not letting her off the hook for her pesky attempts this time. The sect leader finally manages to stand despite his broken ribs. Suddenly, our gorilla buddy joins the scene and lands a punch on the old man that leaves a gush of blood escaping his stubborn mouth. But the King Kong quickly gets back on his feet, fired up and ready to have some real fun dealing with these guys. The fifth elder immediately shouts to check if the third elder is okay. Meanwhile, the sect leader is baffled to see the gorilla in the arena instead of capturing the flag. To which the big guy explains he heard loud noises and rushed to help the third elder. Our guy is even more furious at this dumb lug and wonders if he should shoot him for his stupidity. But Dongguang quickly reassures our hero that their flag is still safe. And that is when King Kong proudly declares he entered the game solo, which shocks Jian to think this guy's confident enough to handle all three of them alone. Dongguang makes it clear that no matter how powerful the mighty Chief Changchai is, he's no match for the three of them together. He starts walking, building up momentum, and warns Changchai that his cockiness will be his downfall in this match. The old man just laughs it off, confidently preparing to retaliate. Their fists clash with each other like titans. The old man decides to settle the match with a raw display of strength like true men, and Dongguang couldn't be more ready. He winds up and delivers a brutal blow to Changchai's face, causing him to cough up blood once again. But it seems like that punch does nothing more than to tickle the old man, who retaliates with a devastating strike that leaves Dongguang coughing up blood in return. They exchange punches fiercely, each balancing themselves and striking back with equal force. Their fight escalates to a blur of rapid blows, their movement so fast it's hard to follow. After enduring 2 solid punches to his face, our gorilla finally takes steps back, after turning into a bloody mess. The old man, however, stands tall, seemingly unaffected by the fight's brutality. Suddenly, he feels a strange sensation in his leg. Turns out our guy has planted a sweet bullet inside the old man's leg. A reminder not to underestimate an enemy with a gun. Dongguang beams like a kid in a candy store, seeing his master make a comeback with his secret move. Even the old man is forced to admit it's a mysterious martial art indeed, especially being attacked from a distance without any visible movement like that. Still, he laughs cockily, saying it's not enough to stop him from claiming the flag for himself. Jian already knows this much, but he stresses that even seemingly unbreakable rocks give way when struck persistently, eventually crumbling. If you keep hitting the weak spot in the wall, even the toughest rocks come tumbling down, he explains. The old man scoffs, not quite getting it, and lunges at our hero, challenging him to demonstrate. Our hitman smiles, ready to comply, and unleashes a barrage of bullets aimed directly at the old man's leg. Now feeling the effects, the old man starts to kneel, allowing Dongguang to rush forward and grab the flag. Changchai admits he gravely underestimated everyone there. Before Dongguang can reach the flag, the old man takes a huge leap, landing right between our gorilla and the flag. As he awakens his fiery powers, the old man launches himself like a missile, delivering a solid punch to Dongguang's chest. He prepares for another strike, landing a blow that sends Dongguang crashing into the trees, where he coughs up blood from the impact. Seeing Gaon heading for the flag, the old man leaps again, grabbing the sect leader by the shoulder. He mocks his earlier words about dominating the martial arts world. But Jian has one last trick up his sleeve. He reaches into his gown, planning his next move. Before he can act, the scene flashes back to when Jian received his mission update. He was explicitly instructed to win without killing the fifth master, and that's when Jian realizes that his stun grenade might just come in handy after all. In the present moment, he hurriedly pulls out the grenade and tosses it into the air, catching the old man completely off guard. The stun grenade explodes with a blinding flash, leaving Changchai temporarily blinded. As he struggles with the intense light, his hand falters in its reach for the flag. Seizing the opportunity, the sect leader snatches the flag triumphantly. With a victorious grin, once the flag is in his hands, he reminds the old man that the winner has been decided. But the old man remains silent. The sect leader asks why he's not responding, questioning if he's backing down from their agreement. King Kong bursts into laughter, calling our hero a funny guy and admitting he hasn't met anyone like him in a long time. True to his word, the old man acknowledges our hero as a brother. The sect leader reciprocates, shaking hands to seal the deal. King Kong then grips his hand tightly, causing our hero to wince in pain. He then tells his new brother to call him Hyung from now on. Our hero isn't exactly fond of the big man's personality, and he even struggles to say his name, and once he stammers it out, his face looks like shit. Later that night, everyone cheers for such a memorable day. The old man proposes a toast in the name of their newfound brotherhood, and the whole clan enthusiastically joins in, raising their voices to cheer. Meanwhile, the sect leader wonders if this is the same guy who took a barrage of bullets to his legs earlier. He then asks Dongguang about the third elder, and he says she's not feeling too hot, so she's chilling in her room for a bit. Jian gets why she left early, considering she took a heavy beating too. Meanwhile, the lady is staring out the window, looking all worried about something. She is feeling down because she thinks she was zero help to the sect leader and feels useless just tagging along. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door, and our hero pops into the room after getting permission and asks if she's alright. To which she gives him a positive response, and immediately says sorry. He asks why she's apologizing, and she explains she feels like she didn't do squat today and just now realizes how powerless she really is. The sect leader tries to knock some sense into her, reminding her that guy's a powerhouse and there's no shame in losing. He tells her they stumbled today, but all they have to do is get back up and dust off their knees. He mentions he might challenge him again soon and suggests she stop overthinking and relax. Feeling relieved and somewhat happier after his comforting words, she politely agrees. He steps outside again, only to find both gorilla brothers totally drunk from all the booze. For once, Jian decides to call it a night, so the gorillas start teasing him for not handling his liquor. Feeling challenged, he takes his first drink and promptly collapses onto the ground. The next day arrives, and before their paths diverge, the old man assures that he'll always stand ready for battles to support his brother. He still hints at marrying his daughter to the sect leader if there's a chance, and the lady herself seems eager to tie the knot with our hero. She mentions she has a gift, something she'll only give to a man she likes. Dongguang praises Gion for scoring himself a girl. The lady offers the gift, and Gion accepts it graciously, intending to take it as just a gift. As he reaches out, she immediately offers it to Dongguang, and our hero feels disgusted that this woman picked up this brainless gorilla for her. While blushing, she adds that she made it herself, so it might not taste great. Dongguang politely declines her offer outright, saying he can't accept it, especially in front of his master. As Dongguang enjoys himself, our hero feels a bit mocked and barely keeps himself together. Back at the Mangu sect, you can see the sect leader's disappointment written all over his face again, when he looks at Fat Haru and asks, "Who's the kid?" Haru immediately reminds our hero that it's her. That's when the chubby elder waddles in, saying she didn't know how to party until he showed her the ropes, and this is how she ended up in her plus-sized shape. Night falls, and the leader crashes onto his bed, with his dog by his side. Suddenly a servant announces a guest's arrival, prompting the leader to invite them to his room. The guest turns out to be Songran, sweating profusely from exhaustion. She explains that her father forgot to mention something and sent a message through her. The man tells her to hand over the message, and as soon as he starts reading, he discovers something about the League of Nansen. Shortly after, the scene shifts to a bustling red light area where women allure men into their establishments. Two figures stand outside a particular house. When the bell rings, the manager appears and asks if they're looking for someone. One of the mysterious figures cryptically mentions that people like him are living in poverty here. The manager agrees, noting they haven't paid him for days and are always seeking unmarried contracts and alcohol. The mysterious guy hands over a pouch of money, asking if it's enough for the payments, and instructs the manager to guide them. This man is apparently Gu Gye-hyun, the leading disciple of the Goryeo faction and the next generation leader. The manager leads them inside, and it turns out to be the same man whose balls got busted by Jian in Chapter 7, and the third elder had tossed them into the red light area after giving them a pill to erase their memories. Now, he's just demanding booze after losing his mind. Gu Gye-hyun is furious to see this disgraceful behavior tarnishing their faction's reputation. He turns to his subordinate and asks if he knows who caused this disciple's current state. The man confirms he does, so Gu Gye-hyun orders him to visit nearby villages to gather information on our party, and to issue a most wanted notice. Soon enough, our trio finds themselves plastered on wanted posters across the walls. Dongguang is listed first, followed by the third elder, and then our hero, who looks nothing like his picture on the poster. However, a man on the street identifies him as the notorious criminal, the most wicked scoundrel under heaven. Honestly, our hero's wanted poster had me cracking up.